Chapter 29. Xu Fei grabbed Lu Yuan's hand and hurried into the house. Brother Xu, long time no see. Seeing Xu Fei, a burly man in the room greeted him. This person had a rather majestic appearance. He was tall and burly, and his face was full of sideburns. However, he looked rather forthright. Long time no see, Brother Chu. Xu Fei returned the greeting with a smile. Is this kid the student that Phasno's main palace is sending over? She looks fair and tender, very pretty. The burly man patted Lu Yuan's shoulder with his palm-leaf-sized palm. A huge force came from his palm, causing Lu Yuan's body to sink. The burly man was surprised to see that Lu Yuan didn't move at all. This kid is quite sturdy. Not bad, he's a good seedling. Of course. Our Lu Yuan has innate full soul power. Xu Fei laughed. Innate full soul power? That's incredible. The burly man exclaimed. This was a rare talent. He thought the kid he sent this year was a genius with innate 9th rank soul power, but he didn't expect Xu Fei to send someone with innate full soul power. Come, Lu Yuan. Let me introduce you. This is Chu Yu, a deacon of Silvis. His martial soul is the grizzly bear, and he's a rank 52 soul king just like me. Chu Yu. Are you sure that's his name? Looking at the fierce-looking and burly man, he was unable to associate him with Chu Yu's reputation, and he couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Nice to meet you, Uncle Chu. I'm Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan bowed. Nice to meet you. The burly man pulled out a boy from behind him. This is Douluo, a prodigy from Silvis. He has innate 9th rank soul power. Let's get to know each other. Nice to meet you. I'm Lu Yuan. Nice to meet you, I am Douluo. Douluo was a shy boy. How long have you been here, Brother Chu? Xu Fei asked. We've been here for 3 days, but there's still no arrangement. What's the schedule for this year's exam? Chu Yu asked. Is that so? Xu Fei stroked his chin and muttered. I heard that something has happened recently. Now that the martial spirit city is on high alert, it should be something big, Chu Yu said. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's drooping eyes suddenly lit up. In the air, Xu Fei and Lu Yuan's eyes intertwined. Do you know what happened? Xu Fei calmly asked. I'm not sure, but this matter must be very serious. Even the chrysanthemum Douluo has been dispatched, Chu Yu said in a quiet voice. Even a titled Douluo has been mobilized. Lu Yuan rolled his eyes. It seemed like the evil soul masters had really stirred up a hornet's nest. According to his conjecture, the martial soul palace's actions were definitely targeted at evil soul masters. After all, the martial soul palace could not afford to be humiliated. Sigh, what an eventful time, Xu Fei sighed. Little Fei Fei, why are you sighing? Can you tell me? A shrill voice came from behind, causing everyone to tremble. Who would be able to stand such a top-quality person? Xu Fei immediately shuddered and said, Nothing, you heard wrong. Really? Did I hear wrong? Little Fei Fei, if you have something to hide, you must tell me. She winked at Xu Fei. Blurg. A retching sound came from the side. It turned out to be Chu Yu. Chu Yu, what do you mean? Yu Ling was embarrassed and angry. She pointed her finger at Chu Yu. No, nothing. Blurg. Chu Yu vomited again. Blurg. 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 Chu Yu's vomiting seemed to have caused a chain reaction. More than half of the people in the room vomited. Yu Ling's face was ashen as she looked at everyone angrily. You guys are too much. Xu Fei shouted. Little Fei Fei, you're the best. Yu Ling looked at Xu Fei with a touched face. Count me in if you want to vomit. Blurg. Xu Fei turned around and vomited. Yu Ling was speechless. Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. These people are really top quality. Lord Bishop has arrived. Welcome, Lord Bishop. Everyone saluted. It was a red-robed bishop from the Pontiff Palace. He was a soul sage, and his status was much higher than everyone else's. Under the orders of His Holiness, all deacons of the sub-palaces, and main palaces are to bring their subordinates to the Martial Spirit Academy tomorrow. Those who passed the test will stay, and those who didn't are to return immediately. The red-robed bishop said loudly. Yes, Lord Bishop. Everyone replied in unison. Where are Xu Fei and Lu Yuan from the main palace of Phasno? The red-robed bishop asked. Yes, Lord Bishop. Although Xu Fei was surprised that the bishop personally called him, he still pulled Lu Yuan forward. You are Xu Fei and Lu Yuan? The red-robed bishop asked. Yes, Lord Bishop. The red-robed bishop looked at Lu Yuan with a meaningful look in his eyes and said, Xu Fei has contributed greatly by killing an evil soul master in Fengming village. He will be rewarded with a soul advancement pill and 20,000 gold soul coins. As for Lu Yuan, His Holiness has ordered Lu Yuan to join the Prodigy training camp and participate in the Prodigy selection tournament. No mistakes. Prodigy training camp? Lu Yuan was confused. Lord Bishop, may I ask what kind of place this is? The red-robed bishop said, the Prodigy training camp is a place for the martial spirit palace to select talents. Any prodigy who wishes to join the Pontiff Palace must join the Prodigy selection tournament, which is held once every 3 years. Only the top 3 prodigies are qualified to join the Pontiff Palace. The top 10 Prodigy training camp disciples are exempt from the Martial Spirit Academy and receive the treatment of an elite student. His Holiness values you greatly, so don't disappoint him. Yes, Lord Bishop. Lu Yuan said. That's all then. I'll take my leave now. Tomorrow, someone will escort you to the Prodigy training camp. The red-robed bishop left, leaving the room full of people behind. The deacons of the other subdivisions and subdivisions looked at Xu Fei and Lu Yuan with strange eyes. Why were they the only ones who were called out by the red robe among so many people? Brother Xu, what's going on? Chu Yu whispered. I'll tell you later. For now, let's find a room to stay in. Xu Fei didn't want to say too much in public. All right, the room next to mine is empty. You two can stay there. Chu Yu smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Chu. Xu Fei smiled. Following Chu Yu, they left the main hall, leaving behind a group of people looking at each other. Chapter 30. After entering the room, Xu Fei told Chu Yu everything that had happened in Fengming village, causing Chu Yu to feel indignant. Only now did Chu Yu understand why the Pope would treat Xu Fei and Xu Fei favorably. It was because the two of them had avenged the villagers of Fengming village and saved the face of the Pope and the martial soul palace. In addition to Lu Yuan's innate talent with full soul power, the Pope's favor was understandable. I've also heard that the Genius Training Camp is a place where the martial soul palace selects talent. Xu Fei's expression was solemn. There are no mediocre people in the Genius Training Camp. Every one of them is considered a genius in the outside world, and those who can rise above the rest are all heaven's chosen. The golden generation of the martial soul palace came out of the Genius Training Camp, and they were the top 3 in their generation. Xu Fei spoke frankly with assurance. Although there aren't any heavens chosen who can compare to the golden generation in every generation, those who come out of the Genius Training Camp stand at the peak of their peers. Chu Yu agreed. Just as Xu Fei said, the Martial Soul Palace has 2 main methods to select talents. The first is the Martial Soul Academy. Those who pass the initial examination can enter the Martial Soul Academy, and if they perform well during the course of their studies, they'll be selected and heavily nurture. The other one is the Genius Training Camp. Compared to the Martial Soul Academy standards, the Genius Training Camp standards are much higher. Furthermore, the training there is very strict. Every student that succeeds in the Genius Training Camp will be highly valued by the Martial Soul Hall. The top 3 will even have the opportunity to enter the Pontiff's Palace and take an elder as their master. But the competition in the Genius Training Camp is extremely fierce, and the training intensity is extremely high. Every year, there are many students who can't handle the intensity of the training and collapse. Many talented soul masters have fallen in the Genius Training Camp. Xu Fei's face was serious. So, joining the Genius Training Camp isn't just a favor for you. It's also a strict test for you. It's an opportunity, but it's also a trial. Whether or not you can break through the chrysalis and become a butterfly depends on you. Xu Fei looked at Lu Yuan and said sincerely, Yes, I understand, Uncle Xu. Lu Yuan looked determined. No matter what difficulties lie ahead, I will persevere to the end. Good ambition. Chu Yu laughed. Xu Fei's lips curled into a smile. I believe in you. After all, you're a genius from our Phasno province. I hope I'll hear the news of you standing out from the training camp in the future. Don't worry, I won't let you down. New Moon Canyon. This was the base of the Genius Training Camp. As the Martial Soul Palace's famous Genius Training Camp, the management of this place was very strict and militarized. Not only were there specialized Soul Master legions stationed here, but the highest commander in charge of management was even a high-level Soul Say. Every hour, there would be soldiers on duty patrolling. The entire training camp's defense was as solid as a fortress. It was almost impossible for ordinary people to sneak in. Even a Soul Douluo would be discovered if they tried to sneak in, unless they were at least a titled Soul Master. But that was another matter altogether. The requirements for the Genius Training Camp were very high. They only accepted students under the age of 10. Every 3 years, only the top 10 would be able to walk out. If one joined at the age of 6, they would only be able to participate in 2 selections at most. If they were older than 10 and still couldn't walk out, they would be expelled. In other words, only 10 people would be able to walk out in 3 years. The rest, other than those who had just joined, were all failures. Those who didn't meet the requirements didn't have the qualifications to stay in the Genius Training Camp. Since the beginning of the training camp, the students who were able to walk out were all around 9 years old. Without exception, almost all of them were high-level Soul Masters. The most outstanding members of the Golden Generation were all Soul Grandmasters. To date, there hadn't been a single case of 6 or 7 years old who could walk out of the training camp. Therefore, Bibidan's requirements for Lu Yuan were very high, far exceeding the limits of ordinary geniuses. This was also the reason why many of the elders in the hall didn't have any objections to Bibidan's words. If Lu Yuan could really defeat all the competitors at the age of 6 and become the champion, then his talent would surpass everyone else's since the start of the training camp. Then, he would be worthy of being the disciple of His Holiness the Pontiff. On this day, 2 figures arrived outside the training camp. One was tall, and the other was short. At the entrance of the training camp, a middle-aged man in silver armor was already waiting. Greetings, Instructor Chris. I've been ordered by His Holiness to send this person into the training camp. This is a letter written by Bishop Philo. The person who came with Lu Yuan handed a letter to the man in silver armor, who was the so-called Instructor Chris. Lu Yuan, 6 years old, from Noding City, Phasno Province. Martial Soul, Golden Dragon. Rank 15 Assault-type Soul Master. Soul Ring, 800-year Demonic Ape. Chris read out word by word. I didn't expect you to be a genius. Chris' tone was flat, but when he said the word genius, there was a hint of mockery in his voice. I'll take him. You can go back first. Chris waved his hand at the man, then turned to Lu Yuan and said, Kid, come with me. In the training camp. Chris' office. Kid, once you've entered the training camp, you have to abide by our rules. I don't care who introduced you, and I don't care who your backer is. Here, you only need to do one thing, and that is to obey orders. Do you understand? Chris said indifferently. Yes, sir. Lu Yuan replied in a firm tone. Very good. Chris clapped his hands and said, Hal, bring him to the dormitory. Tomorrow, the training will officially begin. Yes, instructor. Chris looked at Lu Yuan's back as they left. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. Someone that His Holiness the Pontiff values? I'd like to see how capable you are. The training camp was huge, and there were many students. Including the old students, the total number of people was no less than 150. 150 people, but only 10 people were able to make it out in 3 years. It had to be said that this was a cruel ratio. The dormitory building was not far away, and it was huge, so there were many rooms. On average, 2 people could share a dormitory. Back in the days of Notting Academy, there were many people squeezed into a dormitory. There were at least a dozen people. On the 2nd floor, room number 204. Hal stopped in his tracks, took out a key, and handed it to Lu Yuan. He said, This is your dormitory. Someone will send the bedding to you later. Thank you, Uncle HL. Lu Yuan thanked him politely. It's my duty. There's no need to thank me. I'll take my leave first, Hal said and turned to leave. Uncle HL, take care. Lu Yuan inserted the key into the lock, turned it slowly, and gently pushed open the door. Chapter 31. Pushing open the door, the room was very spacious. Other than 2 beds, 2 wardrobes, and 2 desks, there was nothing else. The room was very clean, without a speck of dust. It seemed like someone had purposely cleaned it. Of the 2 beds, one had a pile of bedding on it. It was obvious that someone had already lived in it. The other bed was a smooth wooden plank. Lu Yuan knew that this was his bed. Finding a chair to sit on, Lu Yuan put his things away. Although HL said that he would arrange bedding, he still had to use his own toiletries. The sun was setting. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed since Lu Yuan arrived at the training camp. The training in the training camp had also ended. Who are you? Looking at the small figure in the room, Yuan Xin was a little confused. I'm a new student. My name is Lu Yuan. Looking at the young man at the door, Lu Yuan said. This should be my roommate. New. Looking at Lu Yuan's young face, Yuan Xin's vigilance slowly dropped. Fortunately, he was only a 6 or 7-year-old child. Hello, I'm Yuan Xin. Yuan Xin's personality seemed to be a little cold. After greeting him, he ignored Lu Yuan and sat alone at the side. Lu Yuan was not the kind of person who liked to talk. Since Yuan Xin ignored him, he was too lazy to talk. The entire room fell silent. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Is Lu Yuan staying here? This is the bedding that Manager HL ordered to send over. It was a middle-aged man. I'm Lu Yuan. Thank you, Manager HAL. Lu Yuan said as he took the bedding from the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man nodded and turned to leave. He carried the bedding to his bed and laid it on it. The bedding was very big. It was just right to lay it on the already spacious bed. The soft bedding was very comfortable to the touch, and the quality was not bad. You have a relationship with Manager HAL? Yuan Xin's cold voice sounded. What relationship? Yuan Xin took the initiative to respond, which surprised Lu Yuan. However, his words also made Lu Yuan somewhat puzzled. If it's not related, why would Steward Hal send someone to deliver bedding to you? Doesn't every student have one? Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Xin stared straight at Lu Yuan. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with his expression, he said, the students prepare their own bedding. The training camp doesn't care about these things. Then what is this? Looking at his bedding, Lu Yuan came to a realization. Perhaps Instructor Chris and Manager Hal had told him something. After all, it was His Holiness the Pope who had ordered him to enter the training camp. Looks like your background isn't small. Yuan Xin said lightly. Lu Yuan was silent for a moment and did not explain. It seemed that no matter where one was, these problems were unavoidable. Even in the martial Soul Palace, one's background was still important. Ordinary people would never receive better treatment. The atmosphere turned cold for a moment. Lu Yuan changed the topic. You've been in the training camp for so long. Is there anything you need to pay attention to in the camp? Yuan Xin's age was between 9 and 10 years old. According to the rules of the training camp, the age of those who joined the Genius Academy could not be older than 7. He had probably been in the training camp for almost 3 years. There aren't many things to pay attention to in the training camp. There are only 2 things to pay attention to in the training camp. Yuan Xin's gaze turned to Lu Yuan. The first thing is training. Every day, the instructor will set different training tasks for different students. No matter how difficult the task is, you must complete it. Otherwise, you will be eliminated. The second thing is the other students. In the training camp, only 10 students will be selected from the Prodigy Selection Competition every 3 years. Therefore, in order to ensure that they advance, many people join forces to form some factions. They specifically target talented students and suppress their growth to ensure that they can advance. The training camp doesn't care about these things. Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Shin sneered. This is a world where the strong preys on the weak. On the contrary, the training camp encourages this kind of behavior. As long as no lives are lost, the training camp is too lazy to care about these things. Then what factions are there in this training camp? Lu Yuan asked. Yuan Shin glanced at Lu Yuan and said, I won't talk about those small factions. There are mainly 4 powerful factions. The strongest is the Wind Hall. Their leader is Lin Feng. His martial soul is the Ghost Leopard. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 22 Agility System Soul Grandmaster. He has no less than 20 Soul Masters and is ranked first in terms of overall strength. Next is the Yang sect. Their leader is Yang Xiong. His martial soul is the Azure Lightning Divine Elephant. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. He has more than 10 Soul Masters under him and is ranked second. Next is the Qin sect. Their leader is Qin Yuan. His martial soul is the Purgatory Demon Wolf. He is 10 years old this year and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. He has more than 10 Soul Masters under him and is ranked third. Lastly is the Yangluo Hall. Their leader is Feng Yuyan. Her martial soul is the Purple Yangluo. She is 10 years old and is a rank 21 Soul Grandmaster. The Yangluo Hall only recruits female members and is ranked 4th in terms of overall strength. I am a member of the Yang sect. Since we are roommates, if you are willing, I can introduce you to our Yang sect. Yuan Shin said. Thank you for your invitation, but I won't join any faction. Lu Yuan laughed. Are you sure? If a newcomer doesn't have the protection of a faction, they will be bullied by a lot of people. You can't be thinking that you can do whatever you want just because you have a strong background, right? The training camp is a place that pays attention to strength. Of course not. Lu Yuan smiled and said, since I've entered the training camp, everyone in the camp is my competitor. As for those who want to find fault with me, let them come. I'm not someone to be trifled with. You are very confident. I also hope that your strength is as strong as you say. Yuan Shin shook his head. Those who were able to enter the training camp were all geniuses, and geniuses were always arrogant. Like Lu Yuan, who had just entered the training camp, they were all fearless, including him in the past. However, after being taught a lesson by the students in the training camp, they knew the immensity of heaven and earth. Yuan Shin felt that after Lu Yuan was ruthlessly taught a lesson, he would know that the strength he was so proud of was actually nothing in the training camp. At that time, he would learn to be obedient. However, what Yuan Shin didn't know was that his way of thinking was only applicable to ordinary students. Lu Yuan was never an ordinary person. In Yuan Shin's opinion, the students in the training camp might be very powerful, but in Lu Yuan's eyes, they were actually no different from chickens and dogs. When he found out that the strongest in the training camp was only a rank 22 Soul Grandmaster, Lu Yuan had already lost interest in them. He had killed high-level Soul Grandmasters and evil Soul Grandmasters, let alone some of the so-called geniuses in the training camp. He was more interested in the training methods in the genius training camp and hoped that they would satisfy him. Chapter 32. Yuan Shin naturally didn't know about Lu Yuan's thoughts. Otherwise, he would have called him arrogant. Sometimes, a person's perspective determined their thoughts. Since Lu Yuan had rejected his good intentions, Yuan Shin couldn't be bothered. Although they were roommates, they had only met by chance. As the sky slowly darkened, Lu Yuan felt a little hungry. He asked Yuan Shin for the location of the canteen and enjoyed his first dinner in the training camp. The food in the training camp wasn't bad. There were meat, vegetables, and fruits. Every student had a small piece of soul beast meat. It had to be said that the training camp of the Martial Soul Palace was indeed rich and overbearing. After all, soul beast meat was very nutritious, but the price was also very expensive. After dinner, Lu Yuan returned to his dorm and began meditating. The internal strength of the clear Qi scripture was constantly circulating in his body. Lu Yuan's strength was also increasing bit by bit. The sun rose, and the earth gradually regained its vitality. For Lu Yuan, today was his first training in the training camp. As the chief instructor of the training camp, Chris had the final say in the training of all the students. Today, your mission is to carry 20 kilograms of weight and run 20 laps around the training camp. Are there any problems? Chris looked straight at Lu Yuan. No problem. One lap around the training camp was only 2 kilometers long. Running 20 laps was only 40 kilometers, and there was no restriction on the use of soul power. This might be a very cruel training for ordinary soul masters, but for Lu Yuan, it was just an appetizer. One had to know that he could wear 100 kilograms of chainmail and run 100 kilometers every morning in Notting Academy. The training in the training camp was just child's play. No problem. Chris smiled. He wanted to see how capable this kid was. Then let's begin, Chris ordered. Lu Yuan's figure ran out. Officer Chris, isn't this training a little too cruel for a 6-year-old child? Hal looked at Chris. You don't think he can do it? Chris asked. It'll be very difficult. Even if he uses his soul force, it'll be very difficult for him to persist with his small body. Running 40 kilometers while carrying 20 kilograms of weight is very difficult even for those high-ranked soul masters. If it's him, it's unlikely. Heh. Hal, you're underestimating him. I think that not only will he be able to run down here, he won't even use his soul power. Chris laughed. How is this possible? Running 40 kilometers while carrying 20 kilograms of weight without using any soul power, this kind of training intensity is something only a few people in the entire training camp can accomplish. However, they are all soul grandmasters, so how is this brat able to do it? Hal was in a bit of disbelief. How about we make a bet? Christian's eyes flickered. If he didn't know Lu Yuan well yesterday, then after this round of investigation, he believed that he understood Lu Yuan well. Lu Yuan was able to kill a soul grandmaster as a soul master. Furthermore, his first soul ring was far beyond the limit of 800 years. His strength wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. He had obtained this information from the Martial Soul Hall. As a high-tier soul sage and the chief instructor of the Prodigy training camp, his status wasn't low. Ordinary people might not know the truth about what had happened in Fengming village, but he knew quite a bit. He also knew why the Pope favored this brat. However, it wasn't that easy to become the champion of the Heavenly Genius tournament. Those brats were also very talented. Now, he just wanted to see how capable Lu Yuan was. Lu Yuan didn't know what Chris was thinking, but even if he did, he wouldn't care. This kind of training intensity wasn't enough for Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan maintained a constant speed. In less than half an hour, he had already completed 5 laps. How is this brat so fast? But this kind of speed consumes a lot of stamina. Chris shook his head. In his opinion, Lu Yuan hadn't thought about the distribution of stamina at all. At this rate, he would run out of stamina after a few more laps. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Instructor Chris, it looks like you're going to lose. Hal had trained many students before. Lu Yuan was too fast. He wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Another half an hour passed. Lu Yuan had already completed 10 laps. Hey! This brat doesn't seem to have slowed down at all. He's already done 10 laps. Chris was a little surprised. Maybe his endurance is better. But if he keeps going like this, it'll be useless no matter how good his endurance is. He won't be able to hold on after a few more laps. Hal still wasn't optimistic about Lu Yuan. Another half an hour passed. By this time, Lu Yuan had already completed 15 laps. Furthermore, his speed hadn't slowed down at all. It looks like we were blind. This brat isn't simple. Chris knew that he had underestimated Lu Yuan's steady pace. How is this possible? This is impossible. How could a rank 15 soul master have such stamina? Hal couldn't believe it. After 17 laps, Lu Yuan's speed still hadn't changed. After 18 laps, Chris was pleasantly surprised. Hal's mouth was wide open. After 19 laps, Chris's eyes were shining brightly. Hal's eyes were filled with disbelief. Finally, after 20 laps, Lu Yuan increased his speed like a galloping horse. His speed shocked Chris and Hal, as well as the other students in the training field. How many laps has this brat completed? A sturdy youth asked a purple-clothed youth beside him. 20 laps. The purple-clothed youth's face was filled with astonishment. Looking at the chainmail on his back, it should be around 20 kilograms. To be able to run 20 laps while carrying 20 kilograms of weight without slowing down, this brat isn't simple. He's not simple. But he should have used his soul power, the purple-clothed youth asked. That's for sure. If he didn't use his soul power, even I wouldn't be able to run 20 laps while carrying 20 kilograms of weight. Even so, this brat is still very strong. The sturdy youth said, Yuanshin, if I remember correctly, this brat is in the same dorm as you. What do you think of recruiting him to our Yama sect? It turned out that the purple-clothed youth was Lu Yuan's roommate, Yuanshin. Boss, I've already invited him, but he rejected. Yuanshin smiled bitterly as he repeated what Lu Yuan had said yesterday. Ah, this brat has some backbone. Interesting. I, Yang Xiong, like him. The sturdy youth was the leader of the Yama sect, Yang Xiong. But I think that Qin Yuan has already noticed this brat. This brat's methods are despicable. Remind him to be careful, Yang Xiong said as he looked at the red-clothed youth not far away. Yes, boss. Yuanshin nodded. Chapter 33. Among the four powers, the Wind Hall was the strongest. Their leader, Lin Feng, was a rank 22 Soul Grandmaster. He was the strongest in the entire training camp, and no one dared to provoke him. And as the number one expert, he would usually disdain to bully other students. Next was Yang Xiong. The Yang school was ranked second, slightly stronger than Qin Yuan's Qin sect. Yang Xiong himself was also stronger than Qin Yuan. Yang Xiong was a straightforward man. He only admired the strong and disdained to bully the weak. Qin Yuan was different. Just like his purgatory demon wolf, he was filled with the nature of a wolf. He bullied the weak and feared the strong. He bullied talented students and had a bad reputation in the entire training camp. However, his strength was extraordinary, and he had a power like the Qin sect in his hands. Even Yang Xiong and Lin Feng were unwilling to provoke him. Therefore, he could be said to be unstoppable in the training camp. Some of the scattered students and small groups were often bullied by him. And now, he had seen Lu Yuan's performance. With Qin Yuan's personality, he might make a move on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan naturally didn't know about this. But even if he knew, Lu Yuan wouldn't put such a clown in his eyes. After running 20 laps, Lu Yuan's forehead was covered in sweat. Chris looked at Lu Yuan in surprise. It seemed that he had underestimated this kid. Lu Yuan, did you really not use your soul force? Hal looked at Lu Yuan from the side, a trace of shock in his eyes that had not yet disappeared. No, Lu Yuan said. It was only 40 kilometers. He didn't need to use his soul power. That's all for today's training. Tomorrow, I will arrange for you to practice. You can go back now. Although Chris was shocked, he was still a soul sage. He had seen a lot and quickly reacted. Yes, instructor. Lu Yuan didn't object. After running 40 kilometers, although he wasn't very tired, he was still sweating. It was uncomfortable to have sweat sticking to his body. It was better to go back to the dormitory to wash up and change his clothes. Lu Yuan slowly left. Chris suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at, Instructor Chris? Hal was puzzled. Haha. Ever since the last golden generation left, I haven't met such a monster student for a long time. Interesting. I'd like to see how strong this kid is. Chris's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. In tomorrow's training, let's have Lu Yuan fight against Qin Tian. Let's see how his actual combat ability is. Although Lu Yuan had the achievement of killing a Soul Grandmaster, that was because he was caught off guard. From Chris's point of view, that was not enough to prove Lu Yuan's true strength. As for Qin Tian, who was second only to those few in the training camp, he might be able to force out Lu Yuan's true strength. Against Qin Tian. Qin Tian is a rank 19 Spirit Master, only a step away from becoming a Spirit Grandmaster. Lu Yuan is only 6 years old, how could he be his opponent? Although Lu Yuan's physical fitness had shocked HL, physical fitness did not equate to strength. Hal was not optimistic about Lu Yuan's chances. That's not necessarily true. Let's wait and see. Christian's interest was piqued. At first, he was curious because Lu Yuan was sent here by the order of the Pope. Now, he was curious because of Lu Yuan himself. The feeling of sweat sticking to his clothes was not comfortable. Lu Yuan returned to the dormitory, took a shower, and changed into a new set of clothes. Immediately, he felt as if his whole body had come alive. The sun was shining brightly. After taking a shower, Lu Yuan rubbed his stomach and walked towards the cafeteria. The morning training had already ended. The training camp students were all eating in the cafeteria. When Lu Yuan arrived at the cafeteria, there were already many people there. After ordering a few dishes that he liked to eat, Lu Yuan took a plate and looked around, preparing to find an empty seat. "Here, Lu Yuan," a voice sounded. The voice was cold, but it was familiar. Lu Yuan looked over. A young man in a purple shirt was waving at him. It was his roommate, Yuan Xin. At this moment, there were two other people beside Yuan Xin. The three of them were quite close to each other. Presumably, they were from the Yama sect. Although he did not like to join any forces and felt that it was too childish, he would feel embarrassed to reject Yuan Xin's invitation. He took the plate and walked towards Yuan Xin. Ta, ta, ta. The cafeteria was originally quite lively. However, after Yuan Xin's shout, the entire cafeteria became quiet. In the huge cafeteria, Lu Yuan's footsteps could be heard clearly. "This is the kid from this morning," a young man in red clothes at a table not far from Yuan Xin said. "That's the kid, Boss Qin. I heard that this kid is in the same dormitory as Yuan Xin." This Boss Qin was the so-called Qin Yuan. Yuan Xin's roommate. "Looks like this kid is going to join the Yama sect." Qin Yuan looked at Lu Yuan with an unfriendly gaze. "Boss Qin, do you want me to teach him a lesson?" A yellow-haired boy beside Qin Yuan said. "All right, Li Ji, then you go and test this kid." Qin Yuan's mouth curled into a sinister smile. "All right, boss." Li Ji chuckled and left his seat. "Yo, this little brother looks unfamiliar. How should I address you?" Lu Yuan was walking when a figure suddenly blocked his path. Lu Yuan raised his head. His gaze was indifferent as he said, "Senior, is there a problem? Our boss Qin invites you over." "Why? Do you want to give him face?" Li Ji said. "Sorry, my friend is waiting for me." Lu Yuan shook his head and refused. "Who knows who your boss is?" "Kid, our boss Qin invites you over because he thinks highly of you. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Li Ji lowered his head slightly and said fiercely, "Heh." Lu Yuan chuckled, "I like to be forced to drink a forfeit." "Why? Do you have any advice for me?" Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Li Ji's eyes narrowed. "Kid, you're the one asking for it." He clenched his fist and punched towards Lu Yuan's chest. "Li Ji, you dare." On the other side, Yuan Xin, who had been paying attention, saw Li Ji's action and immediately shouted, "TSK." Hearing Yuan Xin's voice, Li Ji's heart was filled with disdain. With Boss Qin's support, he was just a new student. What did he not dare to do? This punch was extremely fast and powerful. In Li Ji's opinion, it was enough to seriously injure Lu Yuan. Pa. Just as Li Ji's punch was about to hit Lu Yuan, a palm tightly blocked Li Ji's fist. No matter how much strength Li Ji used, he was unable to take even half a step forward. At the same time, a soft voice sounded, "Is this your fist?" What a disappointment. Li Ji raised his head to look, only to see an indifferent face with some coldness. Chapter 34. Is this your fist? It's slow and weak. Lu Yuan's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Are you a girl? Brat, you dare to insult me? Li Ji was enraged when he heard Lu Yuan's words. Eat my fist. How could Li Ji endure being called a girl? He exploded on the spot. This time, he used all of his strength without being possessed by his martial spirit. Pa. Just like before, he casually waved his hand and blocked Li Ji's full-strength punch. Seems like you're not that good. Lu Yuan held the plate in his left hand and grabbed Li Ji's fist with his right. How is this possible? Li Ji couldn't believe that his fist was grabbed by Lu Yuan. He tried to pull it back, but it didn't move at all. Go. He lightly kicked Li Ji's chest. Li Ji was directly kicked a few meters away and fainted on the spot. Hiss. Seeing Lu Yuan's actions, the students in the cafeteria were all shocked. This brat looked small, but his methods were quite fierce. Li Ji. A crashing sound was heard. It was the sound of a chair being knocked away. Brat, you're courting death. A red-clothed youth walked over. He was followed by more than 10 youths. It was obvious that this red-clothed youth was the leader of this group. You must be the bullshit boss Qin that guy was talking about. Lu Yuan smiled disdainfully and said, if you want to cause trouble, do it yourself. You only know how to hide in a corner and scheme. That's just a trick that a coward would use. Brat, you've got guts. Qin Yuan was so angry that he laughed. I've always been bold, Lu Yuan said with a smile. Especially when it comes to some crazy dogs. I like to beat them to death. He wasn't a fool. The reason Li Ji came out to stir up trouble was because of Qin Yuan's machinations. Through Yuan Xin's words and his own conjecture, Lu Yuan had already figured out the cause of this incident. So, he naturally wouldn't be polite to Qin Yuan. How dare you call me a mad dog? Qin Yuan was enraged. His martial spirit was the purgatory demon wolf. He hated it when people called him a dog. I didn't say that. You assumed it yourself. Lu Yuan spread his hands, indicating that he had nothing to do with it. Stinking brat, you're courting death. Qin Yuan clenched his fists tightly and launched an attack. This punch was accompanied by a fierce gust of wind. No one could have thought that Qin Yuan would actually take the initiative to attack. Many people were worried for Lu Yuan. Qin Yuan was one of the top 3 experts in the training camp. As a newcomer, Lu Yuan was afraid that he would suffer a great loss. Heh. Lu Yuan chuckled and threw out a punch as well. Under the pitiful gazes of the surrounding people, the 2 fists collided. Bang! Their fists collided, producing a crisp sound. Ta-ta-ta. Lu Yuan retreated 3 steps before stabilizing himself. He had only used 50% of his strength in that punch, but he didn't expect Qin Yuan's strength to be so strong. Caught off guard, he actually retreated 3 steps. Qin Yuan, on the other hand, retreated 7 steps before stabilizing himself. Clenching his fists tightly, Qin Yuan's expression was a little ugly. The strength of that punch was so strong that it was difficult for him to resist. Even now, his palms were still a little numb. Hua! The entire cafeteria was in an uproar. Lu Yuan actually had the upper hand in that punch. Although Qin Yuan didn't use his martial spirit, Lu Yuan didn't either. Who would have thought that not only was Lu Yuan not injured, but he also repelled Qin Yuan? This brat! Yuan Xin's eyes widened. He didn't expect his roommate to have such ability. Hehe, this is interesting. Yang Xiong's eyes lit up. He was a typical strength-type soul master and revered strength the most. Lu Yuan was able to repel Qin Yuan just now, and the strength of that punch had piqued Yang Xiong's interest. One had to know that although Qin Yuan's purgatory demon wolf wasn't a strength-type martial spirit, its soul power was still very high. Furthermore, it was a beast martial spirit. The power of that punch wasn't small, and Lu Yuan was able to withstand it without any injuries. His strength was definitely not to be underestimated. However, what Yang Xiong didn't know was that the punch just now was purely strength. Lu Yuan didn't use any soul power, otherwise, Qin Yuan wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Brat, you've angered me. Qin Yuan's expression changed. Purgatory demon wolf possession. Raging flames appeared, and the air seemed to become scorching hot. A giant wolf covered in flames appeared behind Qin Yuan. It was his martial spirit, the purgatory demon wolf. Below Qin Yuan's body, 2 yellow soul rings shone brightly. Awoo! Qin Yuan roared as he glared at Lu Yuan. His green eyes shone with a ferocious light. Lu Yuan focused his gaze. He placed his plate down gently with his left hand and prepared to summon his martial spirit. Just as Lu Yuan was about to summon his martial spirit, a voice rang out. Qin Yuan, what's the point of bullying a new student? Why don't we spar? Lu Yuan's eyebrows twitched, and he dispersed the soul power in his hand. Yang Xiong, it's you? Qin Yuan's expression turned ugly. Why? Are you going to stand up for this brat? Yang Xiong laughed. I feel like old friends with this little brother, and I want to be friends. I can't let you bully him. Yang Xiong wasn't lying. He was very interested in Lu Yuan's strength. His intuition told him that this wasn't the full extent of this brat's strength. However, strength wasn't absolute strength. From Yang Xiong's point of view, Lu Yuan wasn't weak, but he wasn't Qin Yuan's match. That was why he stepped in to stop Qin Yuan. When he saw Yang Xiong and the students beside him, Qin Yuan knew that Lu Yuan's strength wasn't inferior to theirs. If they continued, both sides would be injured, and others would benefit. It was better to stop now. After all, there was plenty of time to deal with this brat in the future. Since you've spoken, I'll give you face. Qin Yuan turned to Lu Yuan with a ferocious expression. Brat, today's matter isn't over yet. I'll be waiting. Lu Yuan didn't care about Qin Yuan's words. He never said anything harsh. He usually attacked people on the spot. Only incompetent people like to say such things. Let's go. Qin Yuan waved his hand, and a large group of people followed behind him. They left the canteen in a grandiose manner. Of course, they also carried the unconscious little yellow hair away. Thank you, senior. Lu Yuan thanked Yang Xiong. Even though Lu Yuan was not afraid of Qin Yuan, Yang Xiong was willing to help him, and he had to accept this favor. No need. You're little Shin's friend, so you're my friend. This is nothing. Yang Xiong chuckled. Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. Just like what Yuan Shin said, Yang Xiong was quite forthright. Brother Lu, let's eat together. Since Qin Yuan and his group left, the canteen is much quieter. It's time to eat, Yang Xiong said. Lu Yuan nodded. He took his plate and sat down at the table. The group of people started to talk. Chapter 35. Yang Xiong was indeed a forthright man. Lu Yuan had a good impression of him. After the meal, Lu Yuan returned to the dormitory and began to meditate. He had to be meticulous in his cultivation, so he would not waste a single bit of his cultivation time. In the training camp, the news of Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan's fight spread. Soon, all the trainees in the training camp knew that there was a new trainee named Lu Yuan. This kid is quite interesting. What happened in the cafeteria could not be hidden from the head instructor, Chris. Lu Yuan was able to defeat Qin Yuan. Although it was said that he was not possessed by a martial spirit, Lu Yuan was only 6 years old. This was already very commendable. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's actual combat drill more and more, Chris murmured with a smile on his face. Hal, who was standing beside Chris, couldn't help but nod when he heard Chris's words. After training so many students, only Lu Yuan could give him such a strange feeling. It was as if he was born different from others. Every time Hal thought that he could not do it, Lu Yuan's performance would break his understanding. From running with weights in the morning to defeating Qin Yuan in the afternoon, it was all out of Hal's expectations. Maybe tomorrow, this kid can really defeat Qin Tian. Hal's thoughts unconsciously changed. Originally, he believed that Qin Tian would win, but now, the balance in his heart was leaning towards Lu Yuan. What a strange kid. Room 204, Lu Yuan's dormitory. Yuan Shin looked at Lu Yuan with a burning gaze. I didn't expect you to have some strength. You really surprised me. Lu Yuan smiled. If I didn't have some ability, I wouldn't have come here. That's true. Yuan Shin affirmed Lu Yuan's words. Generally speaking, those who are willing to join the genius training camp are not ordinary people. Don't underestimate that Li Ji from this afternoon. That guy is also a ruthless person. Is that so? Lu Yuan laughed. I really couldn't tell. He didn't put Li Ji's strength in his eyes. Indeed, Li Ji's strength is not enough for you. However, Qin Yuan and the others are not to be trifled with. Tomorrow, you might be in trouble. Yuan Shin said. I'd like to hear the details. Yuan Shin gently turned around, picked up the teacup and took a sip before slowly saying, Do you know the rules of the training camp? I don't think you know. Without waiting for Lu Yuan to answer, Yuan Shin continued. There is an unwritten rule in the training camp that every new trainee cannot avoid, and that is the test of strength. Generally speaking, it is divided into 3 aspects. The first is the physique, the second is the actual combat practice, and the third is the mental test. All new students must go through these 3 stages. The instructors will estimate the new student's overall strength based on the results and performance of these 3 stages, and then decide on the next training course. Then what did I experience this morning? You went through physique training in the morning. I can tell that your physique is very good. Recalling Lu Yuan's strong physique in the morning, Yuan Xin was also somewhat shocked. So you're saying that I'll have to face a combat drill tomorrow? Lu Yuan immediately reacted. Yes. Yuan Xin nodded and said, every new trainee will definitely face an old trainee, and the choice of the old trainee is decided by the head instructor. If it was before, with your strength, this test wouldn't be too hard. However, after what happened this afternoon, I can imagine that your opponent tomorrow will definitely not be simple. Will it be one of the 4 great experts? Lu Yuan asked. For him, the only ones in the entire training camp that could pique his interest were the 4 Soul Grandmasters. That won't be the case. Yuan Xin gave Lu Yuan a strange look and said, the 4 great experts are all Soul Grandmasters. The head instructor won't arrange a match with such a great disparity in strength. However, it is very likely that it will be a high-level Soul Grandmaster. Moreover, in order to ensure that you can display your full strength, there is a high chance that the instructor will arrange a trainee who has a conflict with you. If you consider it all, this old trainee is very likely to be one of Qin Yuan's people. After all, the 2 of you had a conflict this afternoon, so they definitely won't show you any mercy. Is that so? Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, then I'm quite looking forward to it. Don't underestimate the strength of Qin Yuan's subordinates. You are indeed very strong, but strength doesn't equate to strength. If you can't hit someone, no matter how strong you are, it will be useless. Yuan Xin warned. Then you mean that I might face an agility-type Soul Grandmaster tomorrow? Lu Yuan laughed. It is very likely. Qin Yuan has a few strong agility-type Soul Grandmasters, and the strongest among them should be Qin Yuan's younger brother, Qin Tian. This guy's martial soul is a variant martial soul, the Wind Wolf. This martial soul is extremely fast. In the training camp, Qin Tian's speed is only second to Lin Feng. He is a very dangerous guy. If you meet him tomorrow, then it will be too dangerous for you. Yuan Xin said with a solemn expression. Qin Tian, martial soul, the Wind Wolf. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Then, he suddenly asked, what is his rank? Rank 19 Soul Grandmaster. He is only a step away from becoming a Soul Grandmaster. Rank 19. He should be a good opponent to establish my prestige. Lu Yuan muttered softly. What did you say? Lu Yuan's voice was very soft, and Yuan Xin couldn't hear it clearly. Nothing. Lu Yuan laughed and said, thank you for your reminder. Otherwise, I might have been caught unprepared. No matter what Yuan Xin's intentions were. But his actions were enough to make Lu Yuan feel grateful. That's not necessary. After all, you were targeted by Qin Yuan because of me. Just treat it as my compensation. Yuan Xin waved his hand and said, you should prepare yourself. If you can't beat him, don't force yourself. Just admit defeat. No one will laugh at you. Yuan Xin said. Okay, I know. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. 606, Qin Yuan's dormitory. As one of the 4 great experts of the training camp and the leader of the Qin sect, Qin Yuan had many henchmen. They filled up the entire dormitory. Brother, just now, Manager Hal sent a letter. That brat's actual combat practice opponent tomorrow is me. Beside Qin Yuan, a grey-clothed youth said. Is that true? Li Ji, who had already woken up, cheered and said, then we can properly take care of that brat tomorrow. Being kicked unconscious by Lu Yuan in front of everyone made him lose face in front of the entire training camp. Li Ji's heart was already filled with resentment towards Lu Yuan. Is that so? That's great. Qin Yuan smiled sinisterly and said, then tomorrow's practice, you better not go easy on him. Fiercely train that brat. I want him to know the cruel consequences of offending me, Qin Yuan. Don't worry, brother. I will let him know what is cruel. The grey-clothed youth's mouth hooked up into a sinister smile. Chapter 36. The sun rose, and the purple clouds dissipated. A new day had arrived. Today's training camp was exceptionally lively. What Lu Yuan did not expect was that there was no training today. Instead, all the trainees were gathered on the training ground, standing in different camps. Other than the scattered trainees, the remaining 4 camps were the most conspicuous. Lu Yuan walked alone on the training ground, looking around. Of the 4 camps, Lu Yuan had already met 2 of the leaders. One was Yang Xiong, and the other was Qin Yuan, with whom he had an unpleasant experience. Lu Yuan smiled at Yang Xiong. He had a good impression of this straightforward young man. As for Qin Yuan's unfriendly glances, Lu Yuan chose to ignore them. The leaders of the remaining 2 camps were the remaining 2 of the 4 experts in the training camp, Feng Yu Yang, ranked 4th, and Lin Feng, ranked 1st. Feng Yu Yang was wearing a long purple dress. Her jade-like cheeks exuded a faint seductive charm. She had a head of beautiful purple hair, and her skin was whiter than snow. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was dressed in black. His appearance was not outstanding, but rather ordinary. However, he had an indifferent temperament, which made him stand out from the crowd. In this training camp, Lin Feng's status had always been high. Looking at Lin Feng carefully, Lu Yuan narrowed his eyes. This was the first time he felt threatened in the training camp. Lin Feng. Interesting. Lu Yuan whispered and walked towards Yang Xiong. Is this the Lu Yuan who has been the talk of the camp? He's quite a character. When Lu Yuan noticed Lin Feng also noticed him. With his sharp senses, he immediately felt the faint sense of danger from Lu Yuan. It seemed that this kid who had just entered the training camp was quite extraordinary. Little brother Lu Yuan, you're here. Yang Xiong laughed and patted Lu Yuan's shoulder. Old brother Yang Xiong, aren't we training in the training camp today? Why are there so many people surrounding us? Lu Yuan asked. Isn't today your actual combat practice? You don't know this, but every time there's a drill like this, the instructor will let everyone watch. That's why he doesn't assign any tasks today, said Yang Xiong. Is that so? Lu Yuan nodded. Come, little brother Lu Yuan. Let me introduce you to our brothers from the Yama sect. Yang Xiong was very enthusiastic as he introduced everyone to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan returned their greetings one by one. It could be considered that they had become familiar with each other. Soon, the chief instructor arrived. Chris stood in the center of the training ground and looked at the students. He said in a serious voice, "Students, we don't have a training mission today. However, there is a battle that we need you to witness. Lu Yuan, step forward." Hearing Christian's voice, Lu Yuan walked out and stopped less than 2 meters away from Christian. He turned around and looked at the crowd. This student is Lu Yuan. He's a new student. Perhaps you don't know him yet, but that's not important. Christian continued, I believe that from today onwards, all of you will know him. According to the training camp's rules, every new student has to go through a combat practice with the old students. Today is Lu Yuan's combat practice. I hope that not only will Lu Yuan grow stronger in this combat practice, but I also hope that all of you will learn more from today's combat practice. Now, let the actual combat exercise begin, Chris commanded. For today's combat practice, Lu Yuan's opponent is the agility type Soul Master Qin Tian. Student Qin Tian, please enter. As the manager of the training ground, Hal continued after Christian gave the order. Little Tian, looking at Qin Tian, Qin Yuan made a throat-slitting gesture. Qin Tian's lips curled and he mouthed, Don't worry. Lu Yuan was 6 years old and 1.2 meters tall. Qin Tian was 10 years old and 1.5 meters tall. When the two of them stood together, Qin Tian was more than a head taller than Lu Yuan. Qin Tian, 10 years old. Martial Spirit, Wind Wolf. Rank 19, 1 ring agility type Soul Master. Lu Yuan, 6 years old. Martial Spirit, Golden Dragon. Rank 15, 1 ring agility type Soul Master. Rank 15. Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, the training ground was filled with exclamations. Reaching rank 15 at the age of 6, he was a genius among geniuses. Rank 15. Yang Xiong laughed. This kid is indeed not simple. I thought he would at most be rank 11. Yuan Xin nodded. Reaching rank 15 at the age of 6 was a bit exaggerated. He was already 8 when he reached rank 15. Rank 15, looks like he has innate full soul power. Not far from Yang Xiong and the others, Feng Yuyan blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "Innate full soul power." Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he stared at Lu Yuan in the center of the training ground. Damn it. Different from the others, Qin Yuan's face turned ugly. What others could think of, he could naturally think of as well. His innate soul power was only rank 8. The reason he was able to become a soul grandmaster at the age of 10 was all thanks to a spirit herb given by his family. Looking at Lu Yuan in front of him, he might be able to become a soul grandmaster before the age of 9. This made the narrow-minded Qin Yuan even more jealous. Qin Yuan seemed to have imagined the scene of Lu Yuan being crippled by Qin Tian, and a sinister smile hung on his face. But little Tian is already rank 19. So what if he is a genius? He will still be destroyed by little Tian. Rank 15. Qin Tian's gaze turned sharp. A rank 15 dragon-type soul master would definitely not be weak. However, looking at his martial spirits type, his weakness should be his speed. To Qin Tian, who had been in the training camp for 3 years, he still had this kind of insight. Wind Wolf. Lu Yuan's soul power revolved, and the image of a golden dragon appeared behind him. The yellow soul ring with traces of purple suede. Martial spirit possession. What a strong martial spirit's pressure. Qin Tian's gaze became more and more serious. Lu Yuan's soul power was obviously lower than his, but the pressure of his martial spirit made his wind wolf somewhat fearful. I can't continue like this. Qin Tian's figure rushed towards Lu Yuan. His figure was like a running wolf, extremely fast. Ah! Lu Yuan stood motionless, and Qin Tian's figure slowly enlarged in his eyes. Shua! Qin Tian's wolf claw attacked. Lu Yuan's body moved slightly to the side, and the wolf claw slashed across his face. Su! A whip kick missed. Before Lu Yuan's leg could reach him, Qin Tian's figure had already disappeared. Good. Not far away, Qin Yuan cheered loudly. This should be the way to fight. Ah! Qin Tian smiled slightly. Sure enough, it was as he thought. Lu Yuan's weakness was his speed. Qin Tian increased his speed, and his whole body turned into a grey shadow. His sharp and tough wolf claws continuously clawed towards Lu Yuan's neck and waist. Once again, his kick missed. Lu Yuan smiled lightly, and a trace of indifference appeared on his face. Is this your speed? I think it's just SOSO. Chapter 37. Arrogant. Qin Tian was enraged. As an agility-type soul master, he was most proud of his speed. Yet, Lu Yuan dared to say that his speed was only SOSO. How could he accept this? Even the other students on the training ground felt that Lu Yuan's words were too arrogant. After all, Qin Tian's speed was ranked second in the entire training camp, second only to Lin Feng. First soul skill, Dark Night Assault. Qin Tian's first soul ring lit up. His first soul skill, Dark Night Assault, came from a 300-year soul beast, Dark Night Wolf. It allowed him to conceal himself and increase his speed by 50%. His gone. Lu Yuan frowned as he watched Qin Tian disappear from his sight. This kid is dead for sure. Qin Yuan laughed. Qin Tian's skill was quite powerful. If he hadn't become a soul grandmaster, even he wouldn't have been Qin Tian's match at the same level. This. Yuan Xin looked at the motionless Lu Yuan and said to Yang Xiong, looks like Lu Yuan's situation isn't good. Heh, don't underestimate Lu Yuan. He's not that simple. Yang Xiong didn't think much of it. Agility-type soul masters excelled in speed. Qin Tian's Dark Night Assault was difficult to deal with, but as long as one's 5 senses were sharp and their battle awareness was strong, they could overcome it. He believed that Lu Yuan had this ability. TSK. Looking at the empty battlefield, Lu Yuan slowly closed his eyes. Since my eyes can't see, then I won't use him. His tone was light, but it was full of confidence. Pretending to be mysterious, Qin Tian, who was hiding in the dark, was enraged by Lu Yuan's actions. Go to hell! Hiding beside Lu Yuan, Qin Tian's sharp claws reached for Lu Yuan's neck. With the sharpness of his wolf claws, Lu Yuan's life would be in danger if his claws hit. Closing his eyes, Lu Yuan began to empty his mind. His spiritual power had been extraordinary since he was young, and his perception was far sharper than others. It's coming. Feeling the fluctuation in the air from his right, Lu Yuan smiled. Pa. The expected feeling of a sharp claw piercing through his throat did not come. Instead, to Qin Tian's surprise, his wolf claw was tightly grasped by a golden dragon claw. Before he could react, a whip kick landed on his body. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Qin Tian was sent flying and fell to the ground. After being hit by Lu Yuan, Qin Tian's soul skills effects naturally disappeared. Thus, in everyone's eyes, it was as if Lu Yuan had suddenly kicked out, causing Qin Tian to spit out blood and fly away. What's going on? Everyone present was puzzled. It's the air. A voice rang out, attracting everyone's attention. It turned out that the person who had spoken was the #1 expert of the training camp, Lin Feng. No matter how he tries to hide himself, the flow of air can't be stopped. He relied on his perception of the flow of air to break Qin Tian's soul skill. So that's how it is. After hearing Lin Feng's explanation, everyone present suddenly realized that Qin Tian had used the flow of air. However, don't think that it's easy to detect the flow of air. Without extraordinary perception, it's impossible to do this. Lin Feng added, as if he had sensed the thoughts of the students present. This Lu Yuan's perception is very strong. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stared at Lu Yuan's figure. So that's how it is. Qin Tian got up. He had heard Lin Feng's words. Admit defeat. You don't have a chance, Lu Yuan said indifferently. Admit defeat. Impossible. Since the concealment effect is ineffective, I will use my absolute speed to defeat you. Qin Tian shouted angrily. How could he admit defeat to a 6-year-old who had just entered the training camp? Qin Tian was also a person with a backbone. Moreover, he felt that as long as he relied on his absolute speed, the final victory of this battle would definitely belong to him. His body turned into an afterimage as he charged towards Lu Yuan once again. Stubborn. Lu Yuan shook his head. His eyes instantly became sharp. Then I will let you experience what true speed is. Phoenix dance of the 6 illusions. Lu Yuan's figure suddenly became ethereal. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from his original spot. Where did he go? Qin Tian was startled. Just a moment ago, Lu Yuan was still at the same spot. How could he disappear in an instant? What are you thinking? A soft voice sounded in Qin Tian's ears, causing his body to unconsciously tremble. The sharp wolf claws scratched at the side of his body. The figure dissipated. It was just an afterimage. How can it be? Qin Tian couldn't believe that Lu Yuan's speed was so fast. Your speed is really disappointing. A voice with a faint tone of disappointment sounded. Then, a whip kick sent Qin Tian's body into the air. Peng! Qin Tian's figure fell to the ground. This time, he didn't get up. Until the end, Qin Tian still couldn't believe that he had lost before he could even touch Lu Yuan's figure. What a fast speed! Lin Feng's eyes became serious, and there was a hint of eagerness in his eyes. Lu Yuan's speed had made him feel excited again. Lu Yuan's speed had almost caught up with him. Hua! Everyone in the training ground was in an uproar. Lu Yuan had once again shocked them. If it was said that Lu Yuan's strength was astonishing when he defeated Qin Yuan yesterday, then the speed he displayed today was even more shocking. Such speed had already surpassed the level of a spirit master. Sure enough, this brat has some skills. I really want to spar with him more and more. Yang Xiong was also shocked by Lu Yuan's speed. As a strength-type spirit master, speed wasn't his forte. Therefore, even if he was a spirit grandmaster, his speed was still not comparable to Qin Tian's, let alone Lu Yuan, who was faster than Qin Tian. Ah, what a powerful little brother. Feng Yuyan fiddled with a strand of hair. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Lu Yuan, emitting a strong sense of curiosity. Damn it! On Qin Yuan's side, the situation was completely different. Even if you beat him to death, he would never have thought that Qin Tian would be defeated so easily by Lu Yuan. Moreover, Lu Yuan's strength and speed made him feel a sense of crisis. This kind of Lu Yuan already had the strength to threaten him. If this continued, this brat might become a threat to him in the selection 3 months later. Qin Yuan's expression was ugly. His eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan naturally didn't care. The enmity between him and Qin Yuan came out of nowhere. In the end, it was just Qin Yuan looking for trouble and taking the initiative to provoke him. Looking at Qin Yuan's eyes, he secretly laughed in his heart. To him, Qin Yuan was just a stepping stone. He didn't have the qualifications to be in his heart. The competition has ended. Lu Yuan wins. Hal announced the end of the competition. Seeing Lu Yuan's calm appearance, Hal couldn't help but secretly nod. This brat was indeed different from ordinary people. This competition was still won by him. Chapter 38. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Lu Yuan actually won the match between Lu Yuan and Qin Tian. This made many people sigh. The competition in the training camp was already very strong. Only 10 people could successfully walk out of the training camp. Now that Lu Yuan had come, it could be said that he was a fierce dragon crossing the river. This way, there was one less place for them to compete for. This situation was not only limited to the ordinary students. Even the 4 strongest Soul Grandmasters in the training camp were full of fear of Lu Yuan. Unlike the ordinary students, they were not competing for the 10 places that could successfully leave, but for the top 3. This was because only the top 3 were qualified to enter the Pontiff's palace. Originally, it was only the 4 of them competing. But now, Lu Yuan's strength had undoubtedly made them put Lu Yuan in the competition. Lu Yuan naturally did not care about their opinions. He had only come to the training camp for 2 things. The first was to improve himself, and the second was to win the championship. As for other things, he had no interest and was too lazy to care. However, it was necessary to occasionally show off his muscles. At least after defeating Qin Tian, Qin Yuan's people no longer dared to cause trouble for him, which made him a lot more relaxed. Now, when he went to eat in the cafeteria, those people looked at him and hid far away in fear. He could not help but think of the time when he was in Notting Academy. Those students were also afraid of him. He leisurely spent a few more days in the training camp, experiencing the training courses of the training camp. He had to admit that the training in the training camp was indeed very scientific, and the results were great. Moreover, Chris seemed to be competing with him. Every time he trained, he would definitely be there and quietly watch. His face was very rich, and Lu Yuan could not help but feel a chill. Not long after a week in the training camp, Lu Yuan ushered in the 3rd test. This was the so-called spiritual test, which was to test his willpower. The test of willpower this time was to resist Chris's pressure for an incense stick's time. As a high-level soul sage, Chris's pressure was definitely a very difficult test for Lu Yuan, who was only at rank 15. This test was very good because it could test Lu Yuan's limits, and it would not cause any harm to Lu Yuan's body. The results of the test were also very shocking to Chris. Generally speaking, if an assault-type soul master could resist pressure equivalent to 2/3 of their rank, they would be considered not bad. If they could resist pressure equivalent to their rank, they would be considered a true genius. If they could resist pressure that exceeded their rank, they would be considered a monster. They were far from being measured by the eyes of ordinary people. Lu Yuan was only at rank 15, but he had to resist pressure equal to rank 35 before he reached his limit, which was 20 ranks higher than his rank. This result shocked Chris on the spot. This not only showed that Lu Yuan's physique was very good, but his willpower was also very strong. After all, Lu Yuan was relying on his willpower to hold on until the end. Lu Yuan's gains were also not small. Under Chris's pressure, his soul force that was already at its limit broke through again. Lu Yuan was now a rank 16 soul master, and there were still more than 4 months before he turned 7. After the 3 tests were over, Chris tailored a training program for Lu Yuan. The difficulty and volume of the training program left some of the spectators dumbfounded. Even Yang Xiong, who was a Soul Grandmaster, was shocked. At the same time, an unknown scene was playing out in the pontiff's palace. Bibidon sat on the throne, holding a scepter in her hand. She was graceful and elegant, and her might was fully displayed. Her eyebrows were long and slender, and her skin was sparkling and translucent. Her jade-like face was as beautiful as a picture scroll. If there was a phrase that could cause the downfall of a city, then she was the best portrayal of this phrase. In the martial Soul Palace, she was like a flower, but in the martial Soul Palace, she was the most capable pontiff in the history of the martial Soul Palace. Chris, how was his performance? Bibidon asked softly. Chris knelt on one knee, his originally arrogant head lowered. Reporting to Your Majesty, Lu Yuan is a true genius. Chris then reported in detail about Lu Yuan's performance in the training camp. Is that so? After listening to Chris's report, Bibidon asked softly, do you think he can become the champion? If nothing unexpected happens, he can. Chris's tone was very certain. After a series of tests, no one knew Lu Yuan's strength better than he did. In a one-on-one battle, no one in the entire training camp was his opponent, including Lin Feng and the other 3 Soul Grandmasters. This time, I need you to change the way the battles are going to be. Change the way the battles are going to be fought. Please instruct me, Your Majesty. Chris was a little puzzled. This time, in addition to the matches in the early stages, after the semifinals, the championship will be changed to a challenge match. Lu Yuan will be the one being challenged, and he will have to fight 3 people at the same time. Your Majesty, what do you mean? Chris was a little helpless. He was a little confused about Bibidon's thoughts. Only the strongest person is worthy to be my disciple, Bibidon said faintly. Hiss. After hearing Bibidon's words, Chris was shocked. It seemed that His Majesty wanted to accept Lu Yuan as his disciple. This tournament was a test for Lu Yuan. Yes, Your Majesty. You can go now, Bibidon said faintly. Yes, Your Majesty. Chris walked out of the pontiff's palace. He was still a little dazed, and he was shocked by Bibidon's words. After Chris left, the pontiff's palace immediately became empty. Bibidon's eyes were filled with an indescribable color. Lu Yuan, oh Lu Yuan, don't disappoint me. Bibidon's gaze turned in the direction of the Douluo palace. There was deep resentment in her eyes as she muttered to herself, 6-winged angels, I will definitely destroy you. Ever since that incident, she hated the martial Soul Palace and the angels to the core. She would destroy them for the rest of her life. The legendary golden dragon martial soul that is comparable to the 6-winged angels. Let me see your true strength. Bibidon's eyes were like swords. They seemed to have transcended time and space as he stared at Lu Yuan. 3 Soul Grandmasters should be able to force him to use his true strength. Time flowed like water, and 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. During these 3 months, Lu Yuan's training had shocked the entire training camp. No one knew what was wrong with Chris's head, but his training for Lu Yuan had become even more intense. Even with Lu Yuan's willpower, he almost couldn't persevere. Of course, after the training, the rewards were also considerable. During these 3 months, Lu Yuan had undergone a metamorphosis. Even though his soul power was still at rank 16, his strength and physical attributes had all improved significantly. He was much stronger than he was 3 months ago, and all of this had been brought about by these 3 months of training. Chapter 39. It was also because of this that Lu Yuan did not resent Chris's strict and almost cruel training. Instead, he was full of gratitude. Only strict training could sharpen a firm will. In these 3 months, Lu Yuan's willpower had long been as hard as steel. After 3 months, the Prodigy Tournament was approaching. The atmosphere of the entire training camp suddenly became particularly solemn. For many of the students, the 3 years of hard work in the training camp was all for the sake of this selection competition. The winner would naturally be endlessly happy, but the loser was doomed to waste 3 years. Sometimes, competition was so cruel and fierce. For Lu Yuan, he did not have any special thoughts about the Prodigy Tournament because he believed in his own strength. In the entire training camp, he was probably the only one who could face the tournament so easily. Yuan Xin, who was in the same dormitory as him, was obviously more silent these days. He spent a lot of time every day on cultivation. His talent was not outstanding, barely above average in this training camp. However, it would be very difficult for him to fight for a place in the top 10. Yuan Xin's martial soul was the purple jade bamboo, a plant-type martial soul. He walked the path of the control type, and his soul power was around rank 18. At this age and rank, he could be considered an absolute genius outside. However, in the training camp where the strong were like clouds, he was somewhat not so outstanding. The purple jade bamboo was considered a relatively outstanding martial soul in the plant type. Yuan Xin's innate soul power was also at rank 8. However, there were almost no weak martial souls in this training camp. The innate soul power of the students was generally not weak, and there were even students with full innate soul power. Yuan Xin's hard work was a normal thing. As the saying goes, sharpening one's spear at the last minute will not be fast. Thinking back to his previous life, when he faced the college entrance exam, he was also very nervous, so he could understand Yuan Xin's behavior. As for Qin Yuan, who was at odds with Lu Yuan, these days, he had calmed down a lot. Presumably, he was also preparing for the prodigy tournament. After all, although his strength was top-notch in the training camp, there were several people who were not weaker than him. It would be quite difficult for him to enter the top 3. However, no matter how much everyone prepared, the prodigy tournament was still coming. At this moment, the training ground had already undergone some renovations. 4 rings stood tall on the large training ground, and they had been specially constructed by Chris. There were more than 150 students in the entire training camp, but not all of them had to participate in the selection. For some of the 6 to 7-year-old students, their stage was the next batch. As for Lu Yuan, he was a special case. The other students were all recruited at the same time. He was the only one who was sent in halfway, so he was the youngest in the entire training camp. All in all, there were about 120 students participating in the preliminaries. They were divided into groups according to their arenas. Each arena had 32 people, and the top 4 would be chosen. The last 4 arenas would then be filled with 16 people to decide the final 10 places and the top 3. As for the division of the students, it wasn't just randomly drawn. It had to be discussed by the instructors and stewards before it was rationally divided according to the performance of the students. This was to prevent strong contestants from meeting each other in advance. Lu Yuan was assigned to the first arena. There were 32 people in the first arena, and one of them was a Soul Grandmaster. Apart from Lu Yuan, this Soul Grandmaster was the strongest. Coincidentally, this Soul Grandmaster was none other than Qin Yuan. It was unknown whether or not Chris had done it deliberately, but he had actually assigned him to the same arena as Qin Yuan. This was rather interesting. On this day, the sky was clear and the air was clear. The bright and beautiful sunlight sprinkled over the entire training camp, causing people to feel comfortable. Today was the official start of the prodigy tournament. Lu Yuan had his hands behind his back, standing not far from the first arena. Apart from Yuan Xin, there was no one else around him. That's right, apart from Qin Yuan, there was also Yuan Xin and a certain yellow-haired Li Ji, who had been scared out of his wits. This Li Ji's martial soul was the Berserk Mastiff, and his soul power was at rank 17. With this kind of strength, there was basically no hope for him to enter the top 10. After all, apart from Lu Yuan and the 4 Soul Grandmasters, there were also 5 or 6 other rank 19 Soul Grandmasters in the training camp. It had to be said that the Martial Soul Palace, which controlled nearly 60% of the world's Soul Master forces, had a lot of geniuses under them. If these students from the training camp were to enter the Empire's Soul Master Academy, they would all be considered top students. But thinking about it carefully, this kind of situation was actually very normal. After all, the Martial Soul Palace was responsible for the martial soul awakening of all the Soul Masters on the continent. Although commoners didn't have any bloodline inherited martial souls, once there were a lot of people, there would always be a few geniuses. Furthermore, these geniuses mostly joined the Martial Soul Palace. In this way, The martial soul palace naturally didn't lack geniuses. Yuan Shin, you seem a little nervous. Seeing Yuan Shin looking at the arena with his fists tightly clenched and his breathing somewhat hurried, how could Lu Yuan not know what he was thinking? Aren't you nervous? Yuan Shin asked. After spending 3 months together, the two's relationship had become much closer. After getting to know each other, Lu Yuan also knew that Yuan Shin was actually a person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. On the surface, he seemed difficult to get along with, but was actually a warm-hearted person. So gradually, the two of them became friends. I'm not nervous. What's there to be nervous about? Lu Yuan spread out his hands and laughed. That's right. With your strength, there's no need to be nervous, Yuan Shin said snappily. Now, in the entire training camp, there was no one who didn't know of Lu Yuan's name. Together with Lin Feng and the other 3, they were known as the training camp's 5 great experts, even though this guy was only rank 16. I'm different. My strength is mediocre. In this first arena, other than you and Qin Yuan, there are still a few strong opponents. In the first arena, other than Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan, there was also a rank 19 Soul Master and 2 or 3 rank 18 Soul Masters. It was no wonder that Yuan Shin was nervous. After all, with so many competitors, it was very difficult to enter the top 4 in the first arena. And if he couldn't enter the top 4, he wouldn't have the chance to participate in the final battle for the top 10. Thus, Yuan Shin was a little restless. Relax. With your strength, the probability of advancing is still very high. Don't scare yourself. If the pressure is too great and you can't use your full strength, then you'll regret it, Lu Yuan said. You're right. Yuan Shin took a deep breath and said, I hope my luck is good and I don't meet any difficult opponent. All right. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Look, the chief instructor and manager Hal are here. Looking at Lu Yuan's gaze, Chris, Hal, and the others were facing the sun and slowly walking toward the training ground. For a moment, they attracted the attention of all the trainees present. Chapter 40. Today, Chris was exceptionally handsome. His eyes were misty, and his face was handsome. If he had a beard, he would be even more perfect. Chris held the roster and looked around at the crowd. Today is the day of the Heaven's Pride tournament, which is held once every 3 years. There are 4 arenas here. I have already told everyone about the division of arenas, so I won't waste any more time here. Please gather at your respective arenas. The Heaven's Pride tournament will begin soon. I will now announce the rules of the tournament. First, you may use any weapons, but they must be inspected beforehand. You are not allowed to smear poison on them. Second, you are not allowed to intentionally kill others. Violators will not only be disqualified, but will also have to bear the corresponding consequences. Third, you are not allowed to use drugs or poisons, except for students with poisons in their martial souls. Last, during the tournament, you are not allowed to use any means to harm other students. Once caught, you will be disqualified. Private fights are also prohibited. Violators will be disqualified. Alright, that's all I have to say. Now, the tournament begins. After Chris finished speaking, the students headed to their respective arenas to prepare for the tournament. Each arena was overseen by a steward, and the one in charge of arena number 1 was none other than Hal. Hal held the roster and read aloud, Arena number 1, Huang Jing against Fu Luo. Let the match begin. Huang Jing was a rank 17 agility-type soul master with a black cat as his martial soul. Fu Luo was a rank 17 assault-type soul master with a white bull as his martial soul. This battle could be considered very interesting. 1 black and 1 white, like the black and white double fiends, fought on the arena. In terms of entertainment value, the match was average. After all, they were both soul masters with only 1 soul skill. However, the battle between the black cat and the white bull was very entertaining. These 2 fellows simply didn't walk the normal path. Huang Jing kept jumping up and down to avoid Fu Luo's attacks. Occasionally, Fu Luo would attack, but Fu Luo would take Huang Jing's attacks head-on and then attack viciously. These 2 fellows, if you poke my waist, I'll kick your crotch. If you poke my eyeballs, I'll burst your ass. They really used every trick in the book. Lu Yuan felt a chill run down his spine. In the end, the agility type Huang Jing won. However, his injuries weren't light either. He had to support himself as he came down. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to recover without lying down for a few days. It was hard to imagine that these two fellows would actually stage such a hilarious battle in public. Even manager Hal, who was in charge of supervising the competition, could not help but twitch his mouth. Meanwhile, Yuan Xin, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, rubbed his buttocks, a look of lingering fear on his face. It seemed that the battle between Huang Jing and Fu Tailuo had frightened him. The competition continued. Next match, Yuan Xin vs Chen Jiao. Hearing Hal's voice, Yuan Xin's body trembled. Go, Yuan Xin. Lu Yuan patted Yuan Xin's shoulder with a smile. Yuan Xin nodded and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He then strode towards the arena. Yuan Xin's opponent was called Chen Jiao. Lu Yuan had some understanding of this person. His martial soul was the Herculean berserk ape, an assault-type martial soul. He was also an assault-type soul master at rank 17. Generally speaking, control-type soul masters would be able to restrain assault-type soul masters. Although it wasn't absolute, it was still the case to a certain extent. Furthermore, Yuan Xin was one rank higher than Chen Jiao. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happened, Yuan Xin should be the victor. Sure enough, after a fierce battle, Yuan Xin defeated Chen Jiao and obtained victory in this battle. Yuan Xin panted heavily as he came to Lu Yuan's side. Although he had expended a lot of energy, it was obvious that he was in good spirits. Well done, it's a great start, Lu Yuan said. Yuan Xin laughed. A good start was naturally something to be happy about. Patting Lu Yuan's shoulder, Yuan Xin smiled and said, "It should be your turn soon." Lu Yuan nodded and did not comment. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. 7 matches had already taken place in the arena. Next match, Lu Yuan vs Li Ji. Both parties, please get ready. Hearing Hal's words, Lu Yuan and Yuan Xin looked at each other and revealed a meaningful smile at the same time. It's him. Not far from the first arena was where Qin Yuan and Li Ji stood. Boss, it's Lu Yuan. What should I do? Li Ji was a little flustered. Letting him fight with Lu Yuan, wasn't that courting death? There was no doubt that he would lose. What's the use of asking me? I can't help you, Qin Yuan said coldly as he flung Li Ji's hand away. Boss, you. Li Ji pointed at Qin Yuan. His heart was cold. This was the boss that he had followed for 3 years. What about me? Qin Yuan turned his head away and chose to ignore Li Ji's gaze. Li Ji's heart was cold. It seemed that his journey in the training camp had to come to an end. Student Li Ji, please get on the arena as soon as possible. Hal's voice sounded. Why aren't you getting on? Qin Yuan's cold voice sounded. Li Ji went to the arena absent-mindedly and looked at Lu Yuan opposite him. His heart was filled with complicated feelings. Ah, we are really enemies. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, so, do you want to go down by yourself or do you want me to send you down? Li Ji raised his head. His eyes were filled with confusion. The fear towards Lu Yuan and the hatred towards Qin Yuan made him go crazy. His eyes became blood-red. I will tear you apart. With his blood-red eyes, Li Ji seemed to have become savage. The berserk state of the savage mastiff martial spirit? Lu Yuan said indifferently. For martial spirits like the savage mastiff, if they were to receive a serious blow, there was a high chance that they would enter a berserk state. Tear you apart. With the savage mastiff martial spirit in his body, Li Ji rushed towards Lu Yuan. First spirit ability, savage mastiff's tooth. Li Ji pulled out a sharp blade from his claws and swung it towards Lu Yuan. His speed and strength have increased by a lot. Under the berserk state, Li Ji's aura was no less than Qin Tian's. I didn't expect Li Ji to have such a move. He's not a complete waste. Below the arena, Qin Yuan smiled coldly. The stronger Li Ji was, the more trouble he would bring to Lu Yuan. Although he did not expect Li Ji to win, He was happy that he could give Lu Yuan more trouble. Interesting. Lu Yuan stomped his right foot, causing a few cracks to appear. But it's still useless. Facing the berserk Li Ji, what welcomed him was Lu Yuan's punch. What berserk state? What berserk martial spirit? Under absolute strength, they could not withstand a single blow. With a punch that exceeded 1,000 jin, Li Ji's body was thrown out of the arena. The outcome was clear. From the beginning to the end, Lu Yuan did not even use his martial spirit and had already defeated Li Ji. Standing below the arena, Lu Yuan looked at Qin Yuan with a cold gaze. A person who could even give up on his own brother was really disgusting. Chapter 41. Qin Yuan had also sensed Lu Yuan's gaze. Both of their eyes met and there was only enmity in them. Turning his head, Lu Yuan softly muttered, "Qin Yuan, is it?" Very quickly, the first day of the qualifiers came to an end. After the first day of the qualifiers, half of the students were eliminated. Those who passed were naturally happy, but those who failed were only filled with endless sorrow. Survival of the fittest, nothing more than that. The cruelty of the training camp was immediately reflected. Even the students who passed the first round of the qualifiers couldn't relax at all, because the following matches would be even crueler. Lu Yuan didn't feel any pressure and returned to the dormitory with Yuan Xin. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, another round of the qualifiers was held. Lu Yuan naturally passed easily, and although Yuan Xin's battle was rather difficult, he also squeezed into the top 8. The qualifiers of the training camp were held every other day, which meant that there would be a day of rest after every round of the qualifiers. Today was the day of the qualifiers, and as long as one entered the top 4, they would have the opportunity to participate in the finals. Therefore, today's qualifiers were actually very important. Lu Yuan naturally didn't feel much pressure, but Yuan Xin was rather worried. The familiar training ground, the familiar Ring 1, and the familiar manager Hal. Prodigy qualifiers, Ring 1, the first round of the qualifiers begins now. Let's welcome Lin Mo and Yuan Xin. Manager Hal's voice rang out. Yuan Xin's body trembled. The first round was his match. Go, Yuan Xin, you can win. Patting Yuan Xin's shoulder, Lu Yuan revealed a trace of a smile. Yuan Xin nodded, and his gaze became resolute. As long as he won this round, he would be able to enter the finals. On Ring 1, 2 youths stood facing each other. Lin Mo, Martial Soul Ink Tiger, was an assault-type soul master with a rank 19 soul power. The so-called Ink Tiger was actually a black tiger. Among the beast souls, the Ink Tiger was considered a high-grade martial soul. Furthermore, it was necessary to talk about the classification of martial souls. On the Douluo continent, although there were all kinds of martial souls, whether it was a beast soul, a tool soul, a body soul, or a plant-type martial soul, there was a unified standard to measure their strength. Martial spirits were divided into 6 ranks from low to high. The lowest-ranked martial soul was naturally a trash martial soul. This type of martial soul basically had no chance to cultivate. Even if a soul power appeared occasionally, it would mostly be half a rank or 1 rank. It was very rare for a soul power to surpass the 3rd rank. Among them, the most typical was naturally the blue-silver grass, which could be considered a classic example of a trash martial soul. Of course, Tang San's blue-silver grass was an exception. It was the blue-silver emperor. After that were low-grade martial souls. Hammers, sickles, and hoes were considered low-grade martial souls. The chances of soul power appearing were very low, and even if it did appear, it would generally be below the 3rd rank. After that were high-grade martial souls. Notting Academy's Wang Sheng's War Tiger, Su Yuntao's Lone Wolf, and even Lin Mo's Ink Tiger were all high-grade martial souls. Once a high-grade martial soul produced soul power, it would generally be above the 2nd or 3rd rank. It was very rare for it to exceed the 7th rank. Lin Mo's innate soul power was at the 8th rank, so he could cultivate to the 19th rank at the age of 10. After that were top-grade martial souls. Top-grade martial souls were different from high-grade martial souls in that they could produce innate full soul power. Generally speaking, As long as a soul master possessed a top-grade martial soul, his innate soul power would not be below the 5th rank. This was the innate strength of a martial soul. For example, the Clear Sky sect's Clear Sky Hammer and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon were top-grade martial souls. On the Douluo continent, there were not many soul masters who possessed top-grade martial souls. After that were superb martial souls. Superb martial souls were above top-grade martial souls and were abnormally strong. Soul masters who possessed superb martial souls could often fight opponents who were of a higher rank than them. Although top-grade martial souls were rare, they could still be seen frequently. However, superb martial souls were truly rare. One of the most prominent representatives of superb martial souls was the ultimate martial soul. Every ultimate martial soul was a superb martial soul. Generally speaking, soul masters who possessed superb martial souls would have innate full soul power. There were very few exceptions. For example, Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon martial soul was a top-grade superb martial soul. Finally, there were god-ranked martial souls. For example, Chihiro Snow's Seraph martial soul and Sea God's Island Pasisi's Sea God martial soul were both god-ranked martial souls. God-ranked martial souls were unique in that they possessed divinity. Generally speaking, soul masters who possessed god-ranked martial souls would have an innate full soul power of rank 20. God-ranked martial souls were undoubtedly strong, but they were not necessarily stronger than superb martial souls. For example, martial souls like the Golden Dragon and Emerald Cheline were not inferior to god-ranked martial souls in terms of quality, even if they did not have an innate full soul power of rank 20. As for whether there were existences above god-ranked martial souls, it was not clear. After all, god-ranked martial souls should be god-ranked martial souls. Such a martial soul had never appeared on the Douluo continent. Unless there was a day when someone possessed the Azura God or Destruction God martial souls, their martial souls might be stronger than god-ranked martial souls like the Seraph. On the stage, Lin Mo's Ink Tiger and Yuan Xin's Purple Jade Bamboo were both high-ranked martial souls. The gap between their martial souls was not large. Lin Mo's soul power was at rank 19, while Yuan Xin's was at rank 18. Lin Mo was one rank higher, but Yuan Xin was a control-type soul master, while Lin Mo was an assault-type soul master. Generally speaking, a control-type soul master countered an assault-type soul master. Therefore, there was not much difference between their strengths and weaknesses. It was not surprising who would emerge victorious. At this moment, the battle on the stage began. After a fierce battle, Yuan Xin won by a small margin and took a spot in the top 4. However, he had sustained injuries that were not light. He would need a few days of rest to recover. He was not fated to compete for first, second, and third place in the next stage. However, he had at least obtained a spot in the finals. After Yuan Xin's match ended, 2 more matches were held. After an hour, there were only 2 people left in the first arena who had not yet started their matches. One was Lu Yuan, and the other was Qin Yuan. This was truly a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road. Compared to Lu Yuan's carefree expression, Qin Yuan's expression was very ugly. He was very afraid of Lu Yuan, and did not want to clash with Lu Yuan directly. However, he did not expect to meet Lu Yuan at the crucial point of the quarterfinals. It seems like even the heavens want us to settle this. Seeing Qin Yuan's ashen expression, Lu Yuan's face revealed a trace of mockery. He looked down on people like Qin Yuan, who was jealous of others. His actions of abandoning his underlings were even more despicable. Lu Yuan's expression turned serious. He stood up and stared at Qin Yuan. Word by word, he said, "Qin Yuan, with me here, you can dream of entering the top 4. Chapter 42. Lu Yuan's words were tantamount to a declaration of war. Qin Yuan's expression turned cold and sinister. "I will tear you apart. Tear me apart. I'm afraid you don't have that ability." Lu Yuan smiled with disdain. The 4th match of the quarterfinals begins now. Manager Hal announced. Martial soul possession. Both of them possessed their martial souls at the same time. Behind Qin Yuan was a demonic wolf surrounded by raging flames. It was his martial soul, the purgatory demonic wolf. It was a top-tier beast soul. Although it couldn't be compared to the evil eye white tiger or the silver moon heavenly wolf, it was still considered a top-tier martial soul. Otherwise, Qin Yuan's innate soul power wouldn't be able to reach the 8th rank. 2 yellow soul rings rippled beneath Qin Yuan's body. Lu Yuan's aura was even more extraordinary. Golden light flashed, and a huge golden dragon martial soul appeared behind Lu Yuan. Its huge dragon wings flapped, and a dragon's roar sounded. An intense dragon's aura filled the entire arena, and everyone present felt a strong pressure. The golden dragon martial soul was a top-tier beast soul. It had an innate ability to suppress other beast souls. Below Lu Yuan, a yellow soul ring with a tinge of purple emitted a faint light. Although Lu Yuan was only a rank 16 soul master, the aura he emitted wasn't inferior to Qin Yuan's. It was even stronger. Qin Yuan's expression turned serious. Although he was a soul grandmaster, he had never underestimated Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan, do your best. Yuan Shen encouraged himself below the stage. He was still a little worried about this battle. After all, although Lu Yuan was strong, he was only a soul master. However, Qin Yuan was a genuine soul grandmaster. Lu Yuan's lips curled up. Today would be his first step in conquering the training camp. Bang! This was the sound of Lu Yuan's feet stomping on the ground. With a stomp, Lu Yuan's figure rapidly approached Qin Yuan. As far as Lu Yuan was concerned, his strongest point was still close combat. Come on! Qin Yuan shouted and waved his wolf claws as he charged towards Lu Yuan. Boom! The dragon claw and the wolf claw collided, splashing out sparks. Relying on his profound soul force, Qin Yuan's attack was actually evenly matched with Lu Yuan's. Without retreating in the slightest, Lu Yuan opened up a path with his dragon claw. His muscles tightened, and a terrifying strength began to be displayed. For the golden dragon, there was nothing that could not be destroyed by absolute power. With his golden dragon martial soul, Lu Yuan's true stance was to attack, absolutely attack. Pa! A palm slapped away Qin Yuan's wolf claws and a knee hit Qin Yuan's stomach. Under the impact of this force, Qin Yuan's body was pushed back several steps. When Lu Yuan began to truly enter a battle mode, even Qin Yuan, a soul grandmaster, was quickly defeated in this battle of brute force. Damn it! A sharp pain came from his abdomen, and Qin Yuan's expression turned ugly. In the head-on collision just now, he had been defeated almost instantly. His purgatory demonic wolf martial soul had been completely crushed in terms of strength. No, I can't compete with this brat in terms of strength. Qin Yuan's thoughts raced. Just now, Lu Yuan's punches and kicks were not inferior to Yang Xiong's strength at all. They were much stronger than him. However, his purgatory demon wolf's forte was never strength. First soul skill, purgatory demon flame, Qin Yuan shouted, and his first yellow soul ring flashed. A black flame rushed from Qin Yuan's body towards Lu Yuan. The purgatory demonic flame possessed a very strong adhesion and corrosive properties. It was a very powerful flame. Qin Yuan's first soul ring was a 200-year netherflame wolf, and the purgatory demonic flame was a soul skill bestowed upon him by the netherflame wolf. Lu Yuan's body moved, and he dodged the demon flame. His sharp dragon claws slammed towards Qin Yuan. The purgatory demon flame might be very powerful to ordinary people, but it couldn't hurt him at all with his speed. Second soul skill, purgatory protection. A layer of black flames climbed up Qin Yuan's body. Under the purgatory protection, Qin Yuan's strength, speed, and defense were all increased by 50%. At the same time, he was also protected by the demon flame. It was a very powerful skill. After another collision, Lu Yuan felt the increase in strength in Qin Yuan's body. His eyes narrowed. Lu Yuan circulated his soul power and extinguished the demon flame on his hand. He smiled faintly. Interesting. Is this your full strength? Die, Lu Yuan. Qin Yuan's face was sinister, and the hatred in his eyes seemed to want to swallow Lu Yuan whole. Then let's see how strong you are. He clenched his dragon claws into a fist. This time, he was going to use his true strength. Split the mountains and overturn the seas. This fist came from the Mountain Sea Fist. Facing Qin Yuan, who had used 2 soul skills, Lu Yuan was starting to get serious. The 2 figures fought crazily. Golden light and black flames attacked each other. Everyone below the stage had their eyes wide open. This battle was very rare in the training camp, and it could be said that every punch was on the flesh. Lu Yuan and Qin Yuan began to fight fiercely. You punch, I punch. The fight was very intense, and the audience below the stage was very satisfied. In the eyes of ordinary students, the 2 people on the stage seemed to be evenly matched. However, in the eyes of a true expert, Qin Yuan was already at an absolute disadvantage. Qin Yuan was already using his full strength, while Lu Yuan didn't even use a soul skill. Moreover, Lu Yuan's body was almost undamaged. On the other hand, Qin Yuan's clothes were left with scratches. Using the clear Qi scripture, Lu Yuan extinguished the black devil flames on his hand. In the fight with Qin Yuan just now, the devil flames had given Lu Yuan a lot of trouble. Otherwise, Qin Yuan would have been defeated long ago. But now, Lu Yuan was tired of playing with it. He planned to end this match. Crack. This was the sound of bones cracking when a fist was clenched. The palm covered in golden scales tightly clenched into a fist, and a low explosion sounded. This fist wasn't simple. Qin Yuan didn't notice it at all. Relying on Purgatory's armor, he attacked Lu Yuan without caring about anything. Reckless. The golden fist contained Lu Yuan's 3,000 kilograms of strength. This was the strongest strength he could muster without using any soul skills. The wind blew against Qin Yuan's face, and that extremely oppressive fist came into view. Not good. Qin Yuan was shocked. This fist gave him a very dangerous feeling. He couldn't take it. However, Qin Yuan was ultimately an assault-type soul master. Speed wasn't his forte, and he couldn't dodge this ferocious punch. Hurriedly, he retracted his arms and protected his chest. Bang! A figure was smashed off the stage. It was Qin Yuan. Even though Lu Yuan didn't use any soul skills, he was still able to destroy all of Qin Yuan's defenses with his 1,500 kilograms of strength. Looking at Qin Yuan, who was struggling to get up, Lu Yuan didn't have any sympathy. Who asked him to provoke him for no reason? Lu Yuan's expression didn't change. He said indifferently, "Is this your strength? You're really weak. You don't even have the qualifications to make me use a soul skill." Chapter 43. Hiss. There was silence below the ring. The reversal of the situation happened too quickly. Not long ago, they were neck and neck, but in the blink of an eye, Qin Yuan was ruthlessly defeated. He was still below the ring, unable to get up. Lu Yuan's punch was too powerful. Qin Yuan's arms were fractured and several of his ribs were broken. Don't blame Lu Yuan for being heavy-handed. As the saying goes, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll pay them back tenfold. He wasn't a saint. He couldn't repay evil with good. Qin Yuan was notorious in the training camp. When he was seriously injured by Lu Yuan, the trainees didn't blame Lu Yuan. Instead, they were secretly happy. With such injuries, he had no chance to participate in the selection. With Qin Yuan defeated by Lu Yuan, there was no doubt that Lu Yuan had become a strong contender for the top 3. At the same time, Lu Yuan's reputation in the training camp grew. At the same time, after Lu Yuan's victory, the top 4 matches came to an end. All that was left was the final match. 3 days later, 3 of the 4 rings on the training ground had been dismantled. Now, only 1 ring was left. After a series of selections, 16 trainees successfully entered the final match. When it came to the final match, the crowd was much smaller. After all, the trainees who failed in the previous matches had been sent out of the training camp. Therefore, other than the 16 trainees who participated in the selections, there were many younger trainees left. The cruelty of the training camp once again appeared in front of everyone. The host of the final match was Chris. Standing on the high platform, Chris looked around and said, "After a strict selection, we have finally entered the final match. This time, There are 16 trainees participating in the final match. These 16 trainees are the best of the best in the training camp. However, our rule is that only the top 10 are qualified to graduate from the training camp. Therefore, everyone still needs to work hard. The finals this time will be divided into 3 days to select the final champion. On the first day, the top 16 will advance to the top 8. There will be a total of 8 groups. The winners will enter the top 8, and the losers will compete for the 9th and 10th place. The second day will be the quarterfinals. The winners will enter the semifinals, and the losers will compete again to determine the rankings. The last day will be the championship battle. This time, the format of the championship battle has changed. It will no longer be a one-on-one battle. Instead, it will be a free-for-all battle. The last person standing on the stage will be the final champion. His Holiness the Pontiff has issued an order. This year's champion will be able to join the Pontiff's palace and choose an elder to be his disciple. The rewards are generous. I hope everyone will work hard. Finally, I wish everyone a satisfactory result. Now, let's begin the finals. As soon as Chris finished speaking, many trainees who had entered the finals could not help but breathe faster. Originally, the top 3 trainees of the training camp were qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. However, they were only qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. However, this year's champion could choose an elder to be his disciple. This was indeed a great reward. If they could have an elder as their backer, their status in the martial soul palace would instantly change. Among the 16 trainees, only Lin Feng, Yang Xiong, Feng Yuyan, and Lu Yuan had the highest chance of winning the championship. Therefore, the other trainees had their eyes on them. After all, their strength was much weaker than the 4 of them. It's best if they meet first. This was the same thought in the minds of the other trainees. Being stared at by everyone, the 4 of them had different expressions on their faces. Yang Xiong had a smile on his face, but his gaze was firm. He looked at Lu Yuan and Lin Feng with vigilance and seriousness from time to time. Feng Yuyan, on the other hand, was carefully sizing up Lu Yuan. Her eyes were shining. Lin Feng did not bat an eyelid. He still looked indifferent, but his usually steady breathing had become heavier. Lu Yuan, on the other hand, glanced at the 3 of them with a calm look on his face, but his mind was spinning. He had a feeling that the rules of this year's finals were not good, or it could be said that they were specifically targeting him. Others might not know, but Chris, who was in charge of training him, knew most of his strength. If it was a one-on-one battle, he would definitely be the champion. However, the rules had changed. In the end, if he wanted to win the championship, it would be a 1-on-3 battle. If that happened, it would not be so easy to win. He would have to go all out against 3 Soul Grandmaster opponents. This change in the rules was definitely not Chris's idea. It was more likely that it came from the higher-ups. There was only one person who had the authority to give orders to the Heaven's Pride training camp, and that was her, the supreme ruler of the Pontiff's palace. So they want to see my full strength. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with determination. The first round of the finals has officially begun. The first round is between Li Tian and Zhong San. The finals began. The other students' thoughts did not come true. Lu Yuan, Lin Feng, Yang Xiong, and Feng Yuyan did not encounter each other. This was not surprising. After all, the 4 of them were the strongest. The managers of the training camp were not fools. Naturally, they would not let them encounter each other so early. If they guessed correctly, the final 4 would be the 4 of them. Lu Yuan's opponent was called Xiong Meng. His martial soul was the Herculean Vajra bear. It was the same martial soul as Zhao Wuji in the original work. He was 10 years old this year and was a rank 19 Soul Grandmaster. He was from Yang Men and was Yang Xiong's subordinate. His strength was not bad in the training camp, but it was a pity that he met Lu Yuan. The Herculean Vajra bear was a top-grade martial soul. It was a pity that it met the Golden Dragon, the ancestor of strength. It was crushed from beginning to end. After a few moves, it was defeated by Lu Yuan. Lin Feng and Feng Yuyan's opponents were not strong either. They were easily defeated by the 2. Yang Xiong's situation was somewhat out of Lu Yuan's expectations. His opponent was Yuan Xin. This was equivalent to a battle between two people from the same camp. Yang Xiong's martial soul was the Green Lightning Divine Elephant, a top-grade martial soul. It was very strong and could control the power of thunder. Yuan Xin's martial soul was the Purple Jade Bamboo, a high-grade martial soul. Coupled with the difference in their soul power, even though Control-type Soul Masters had an advantage over Assault-type Soul Masters, it was insignificant in the face of absolute power. The final result was Yuan Xin's defeat and Yang Xiong's advancement. Yuan Xin could only fight for the 9th and 10th place in the losers bracket. Lu Yuan could do nothing but sigh at such a result. After all, the training camp respected strength. However, it was worth mentioning that after a fierce competition in the losers bracket, Yuan Xin obtained the 10th place at the cost of serious injuries. It was an unexpected surprise. Chapter 44. Yuan Xin was overjoyed to get the 10th place. He encouraged Lu Yuan and returned to his room to recuperate. Although his injuries were serious, with the help of the training camp's healing soul masters, he could fully recover in less than a week without any sequelae. While Yuan Xin's journey was over, Lu Yuan's own journey had just begun. The finals continued, and the top 8 didn't pose any obstacles to Lu Yuan. He easily passed the stage. The other 3 naturally entered the top 4 without any surprises. It was worth mentioning that Lin Feng's opponent was Qin Tian, the younger brother of Qin Yuan, who had been beaten up by Lu Yuan. Unexpectedly, he entered the top 10 and even the top 8. However, he met Lin Feng, who had developed in the same direction as him. He was simply crushed. During the finals, Lin Feng's speed shocked Lu Yuan. He was indeed too fast. No wonder he was known as the number 1 in the training camp. Lu Yuan's fighting spirit rose in his heart. The next day, after the competition ended, he went to the cafeteria for dinner and packed a lunchbox for Yuan Xin. Standing up, Lu Yuan habitually patted his clothes and walked towards the dormitory. Due to the continuous competition, more than half of the students had been eliminated. Therefore, the training camp was quite empty at the moment. Occasionally, only 1 or 2 people would pass by the large training field. The cafeteria wasn't far from the dormitory. After passing through the training field, the dormitory was located. Lu Yuan carried the lunchbox and walked on the road. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's footsteps stopped. His voice was indifferent. "You've been following me for so long. You can come out now. Hehe, little brother, you have sharp senses." The voice was crisp and filled with a faint charm. A beautiful figure appeared in front of Lu Yuan. She had curved eyebrows, a pretty face, and long purple hair draped over her shoulders. Wearing a purple dress, she was very charming. Even with Lu Yuan's eyes, he had to admit that she was indeed a very beautiful woman. Moreover, she was very tempting. "Hall Master Feng, you've been following me all the way. What can I do for you?" Looking at this beautiful woman, Lu Yuan's heart didn't fluctuate too much. She was beautiful, but she wasn't his type. He preferred big ones. This Feng Yuyan was indeed beautiful, but she was flat. He was not interested in her. "Little brother, you're treating me like an outsider. Just call me Sister Feng," Feng Yuyan said softly. There was a hint of shyness in her tone. Coupled with her charming face, she was really attractive. If it was another 6-year-old child, he might not be able to resist her charm. However, although Lu Yuan was only 6 years old, his mental age was more than 20 years old. How could he be interested in a 10-year-old girl? Unless she was old. Ahem, so Feng Yuyan's words did not affect Lu Yuan at all. "Hall Master Feng, if there's anything, just say it. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. I still have some matters to attend to," Lu Yuan said. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was not affected at all and even chased her away, Feng Yuyan was a little surprised. Could it be that her charm had deteriorated? She couldn't even deal with a child. However, being surprised was one thing. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was still calm, Feng Yuyan finally opened her mouth. "Lu Yuan, I want to talk to you about tomorrow's finals." "Finals? What's wrong?" Lu Yuan asked indifferently. Feng Yuyan said, tomorrow's finals will be a mixed battle. I think we can work together to eliminate the other two. What do you think? From Feng Yuyan's point of view, Lin Feng and Yang Xiong were difficult opponents in tomorrow's finals. They were also the biggest threats. Although Lu Yuan defeated Qin Yuan, Feng Yuyan felt that Lu Yuan's strength was in his strength. His spiritual power was definitely not as good as soul grandmasters like them. However, she was good at using her spiritual power. If she worked together with Lu Yuan to eliminate Lin Feng and Yang Xiong, she was confident that she would be the final champion. Nothing. Lu Yuan shook his head. What did you say? Feng Yuyan's voice raised a few octaves. From her point of view, Lu Yuan would definitely agree. She didn't expect him to say nothing. I said nothing. Lu Yuan said. How can it be nothing? Listen to my analysis. Hearing that Lu Yuan wasn't interested, Feng Yuyan was a little anxious. Lin Feng, a rank 22 soul grandmaster. His martial soul is the ghost leopard. He is the strongest in our middle class. He is known as the #1 expert in the training camp. You saw his speed today. It is very shocking. It is very difficult to defeat him. Yang Xiong, his martial soul is the green lightning divine elephant. He is very strong and can control the power of thunder. His attack power is very strong. Just based on pure strength, even Lin Feng is not as good as him. It is also very difficult to defeat him. But if we work together, it will be different. I am good at control and you are good at strength. We can get rid of the two of them first. In this way, only the two of us will be left. Who will be the champion in the end will depend on our own abilities. After Feng Yuyan finished speaking, she was very confident. She believed that after her practical and powerful analysis, Lu Yuan would definitely agree to her request. When the time came, she just needed to eliminate Lin Feng and Yang Xiong while he was unprepared. Then, there would only be Lu Yuan left. To her, it would be very easy. The champion would be at her fingertips. After hearing Feng Yuyan's words, Lu Yuan looked at her as if he was looking at an idiot. Did this woman think that he was retarded? She was a control-type soul grandmaster and didn't need to fight in close combat. When the time came, the one who would have to fight would be him. Even if he eliminated Lin Feng and Yang Xiong, he would definitely use up a lot of his soul power. In the end, it would still benefit her. Furthermore, in his opinion, this final round was specially changed by Bibidon to see his strength. How could he be allowed to work together with others? He was sure that if he dared to work together, Chris would definitely stop him. Since he couldn't work together with others, he might as well fight alone. Furthermore, it wasn't as if he didn't have the confidence to win. I refuse. Looking at the confident Feng Yuyan, Lu Yuan said plainly. Why? Feng Yuyan's beautiful eyes widened. She didn't understand. If I want to become the champion, I should do it fair and square. How can I work together with others? I don't want to be the champion. Lu Yuan's voice was low, but it was filled with determination. Then what if the two of them work together? Feng Yuyan asked. Then let them work together. What do I have to be afraid of? If worst comes to worst, I'll fight 1 against 2. Lu Yuan glanced at Feng Yuyan and said plainly. You. Feng Yuyan was stunned by Lu Yuan's words. She didn't know what to say for a moment. Oh, right. As if he suddenly thought of something, Lu Yuan smiled and said, if you want, you can work together with them. If worst comes to worst, I'll fight 1 against 3. After he finished speaking, Lu Yuan took the lunchbox and left. Looking at Lu Yuan's back, Feng Yuyan was in a daze. Lu Yuan was such a proud person. Chapter 45. Lu Yuan did not take Feng Yuyan's words to heart. He would deal with whatever came his way. Even if the 3 of them teamed up, he was confident that he would be the final winner. This was his confidence in his own strength. Returning to the dorm, he chatted with Yuan Xin and began to meditate. The most important thing in cultivation was perseverance. The night passed quickly. The next day, at around 8 o'clock in the morning, everyone gathered at the training ground again. Today's battle would be the last battle of the training camp and also the most intense battle for the championship. Hence, early in the morning, the arena was filled with people. All the trainees who were still in the training camp, including Yuan Xin and the other injured trainees, were all present. Looking at the three eager opponents, Lu Yuan touched his ring. Perhaps he would have to use all his trump cards today. Lin Feng, Yang Xiong, and Feng Yuyan each had their own strengths. Together, it would be quite troublesome. Chris stood on the arena. The atmosphere was quite high since it was the final battle. After waving his hands, Chris cleared his throat and said, "Dear students, after the cruel and fierce preliminaries, we have 4 contestants left. They are Lin Feng." On the arena, Lin Feng nodded. Yang Xiong. Yang Xiong revealed a simple and honest smile. Feng Yuyan. Feng Yuyan smiled faintly, revealing a seductive charm. And the last one, Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan, go for it. Yuan Xin waved his hand below the arena. Millimeter. Lu Yuan nodded at Yuan Xin. Today's battle is a free-for-all. Other than not being allowed to use poison and intentionally causing death, there are no other rules. After the battle, the last trainee standing will be the champion of the competition. Chris glanced at the 4 of them. Are you all ready? Millimeter. The 4 of them nodded in unison. All right, let the battle officially begin. Chris quickly walked down the arena. Only Lu Yuan and the other 3 were left on the arena. Looking at the 4 of them who still did not move, Lu Yuan smiled faintly and rushed towards Lin Feng. Among the 3 of them, he was only interested in Lin Feng. Good timing. Facing Lu Yuan's attack, Lin Feng did not back down. Their figures intertwined with each other. Heh, let's begin then. Yang Xiong laughed as he charged into the battle between the 2. Feng Yuyan's expression changed slightly, and her body emitted a purple mist. A purple plant appeared in her right hand, and 2 yellow soul rings shone brightly. It was her martial soul, the purple smoke luo, a top-notch martial soul of the plant element. It had the ability to create illusions and poisons. The purple mist slowly spread towards the 3 of them. Ha! Martial soul possession. 3 martial souls appeared in his body, and 5 yellow soul rings shone at the same time. The battle was about to begin. After pushing Yang Xiong back with a punch, Lu Yuan swept his leg towards Lin Feng. This kick came violently, bringing with it a whistling sound. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. He turned his body and dodged Lu Yuan's kick. Just as Lu Yuan was about to give chase, Yang Xiong's fist flew towards Lu Yuan's head. Crack! Lu Yuan clenched his right fist, gathered all his strength, and punched out. The 2 fists collided. Lu Yuan took 2 steps back, but Yang Xiong was sent flying. Damn, you're strong. Yang Xiong stabilized himself. He patted his chest and sighed as he felt the numbness in his fist. Lin Feng's expression changed. He actually sent Yang Xiong flying with a punch. What great strength! Lu Yuan did not pay much attention to Yang Xiong. He continued to pounce on Lin Feng. To Lu Yuan, Lin Feng was the biggest threat. Ghostly shadow leopard. Lin Feng took a step, and his body became erratic. This was his first soul skill, and its effect was to increase his speed and stealth. Lin Feng's body split into several. Lu Yuan's consecutive attacks landed on the after images, and did not cause any damage to Lin Feng. Interesting. Lu Yuan paused, and his body became ethereal. Phoenix dance of the 6 illusions. His figure split into 6, turning into many after images. In an instant, he caught up with Lin Feng. He's so fast. Lu Yuan's fist brushed past the tip of Lin Feng's nose. The sharp wind caused goosebumps to appear all over Lin Feng's body. Whoosh! Lu Yuan stepped forward, and the 6 after images surrounded Lin Feng. This. Yang Xiong felt his scalp go numb as he watched the 2 figures flying away. The speed of these 2 was too terrifying. He couldn't interfere at all. However, from the looks of it, Lin Feng was at a disadvantage. Yang Xiong was secretly shocked. Not only did he crush him in terms of strength, but he also surpassed Lin Feng in terms of speed. What a terrifying kid. Second soul skill, ghostly leopard combo. Lin Feng felt immense pressure from Lu Yuan's speed. He had no choice but to use his second soul skill. As an agility-type soul master, Lin Feng was actually suppressed by an assault-type soul master in terms of speed. To be honest, Lin Feng felt quite sullen. Stormy waves. Facing Lin Feng's sharp leopard claws, Lu Yuan was not afraid. He used the move of the Mountain Sea Fist. The power of the Mountain Sea Fist was not inferior to soul skills. After all, it was the pride of the top 10 martial artist, Wu Wudi. Wu Wudi was one of the top experts in the world of wind and cloud. Even in this world, he was at least a soul sage. How could the martial arts of such an expert be weak? The level of the world of wind and cloud might not be much lower than the Douluo continent. However, although Lu Yuan was proficient in the Mountain Sea Fist, he still did not understand the essence of it thoroughly. In fact, this was understandable. After all, Lu Yuan was only 6 years old. This martial art was enough for him to use until he became a Soul King or Soul Emperor. Lin Feng's speed was very fast. The power of the ghostly leopard combo was not small. However, it was not much of a threat to Lu Yuan, who was not inferior to him in terms of speed and attack power. Lu Yuan's punch offset Lin Feng's combo and still went straight for Lin Feng's chest. Looking at the huge fist that was close at hand, Lin Feng quickly turned his body. However, he was still hit by the fist wind and his body was thrown a few meters away. Cough. Lin Feng's body fell to the ground and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Lu Yuan did not stop and continued to attack. As the saying goes, take the opponent's life when he is sick. Bang! A cloud of purple smoke wrapped around Lu Yuan. This purple smoke was full of a sweet smell, making people unconsciously want to smell it. Lu Yuan was shocked. He felt that his head was a little confused. He quickly used the clear chi scripture to get rid of the confusion in his mind. The clear chi scripture was worthy of being a peerless technique. In a moment, Lu Yuan's mind was clear again. Lu Yuan's face changed. He only felt an aura suddenly attack. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, a huge fist slammed into the intersection of Lu Yuan's arms. The huge force forced Lu Yuan to take 7 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Looking at the figure opposite him, Lu Yuan's face became dignified. Chapter 46. Lin Feng steadied himself and faced Lu Yuan. There were 3 figures standing in front of him. Lin Feng had already stabilized himself. Not far from him was Feng Yuyan, and the one who punched Lu Yuan was Yang Xiong. Yang Xiong saw that Lu Yuan was being controlled by Feng Yuyan's purple mist, so he launched a sneak attack to eliminate him. After all, he had been a student for 3 years, so he had some understanding of the hallucinatory effects of Feng Yuyan's purple mist. However, he didn't expect Lu Yuan to recover so quickly. He wasn't affected by the purple mist at all. Yang Xiong's powerful punch only made Lu Yuan take 7 steps back. It didn't seem like he was hurt. How about we team up to deal with him first? Feng Yuyan's eyes flashed as she asked. Lin Feng and Yang Xiong were silent for a while, then nodded. Lu Yuan was too strong. If they didn't eliminate Lu Yuan, they wouldn't be able to become the champion. Lu Yuan's lips curled up as he looked at the 3 of them who seemed to have come to an agreement. He touched his ring lightly, and a spear appeared in his hand. It was the Emperor Dragon Shocks the World. The spear drew a semicircle, causing sparks to fly. Lu Yuan smiled and said, "You guys should have teamed up a long time ago. I'm getting impatient from waiting." "Good boy." Chris smiled faintly when he heard Lu Yuan's arrogant words. "The real battle has just begun." How arrogant. Lin Feng's face was indifferent. He didn't look happy or sad, but anger rose in his heart. He was once the #1 expert in the training camp, but now he was defeated by Lu Yuan and had to team up with someone else. Even with his indifferent personality, he couldn't help but feel angry. It's starting. Feng Yuyan's eyes were indifferent. It was just like what he said yesterday, 1 against 3. "I'll go first. Remember to support me," Yang Xiong said and rushed towards Lu Yuan. As an assault-type soul master, he naturally had to face Lu Yuan head-on. Lu Yuan's expression remained calm as he watched Yang Xiong charge at him. On the other side, Yang Xiong was a strong attacker who would restrain him from the front. Lin Feng was an agility type who would be responsible for sneak attacks and harass him. Feng Yuyan was responsible for crowd control. It could be said that they were a perfect combination. With the three of them together, it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. However, even if this was the case, what did he have to fear? He would directly smash them to pieces. It was that simple. Yang Xiong's martial spirit was the Green Lightning Divine Elephant, which was a top-grade martial spirit. Therefore, his attacks were quite fierce. Barbaric Elephant's Charge. This was Yang Xiong's first soul skill, a strength-type soul skill. With the help of the forward momentum and Yang Xiong's own strength, the power of this collision was not to be underestimated. Lu Yuan did not panic in his heart. He swung his spear horizontally, as swift as a handsome dragon. Azure Dragon exploring the sea. This move came from the vast sea spear art. The thrust of the spear was unstoppable. Not only was it powerful, but it also contained extraordinary skill. With Lu Yuan's immense strength, this spear could be said to have reached the acme of perfection. As the saying goes, with a spear in hand, the world is mine. Lu Yuan with a spear in his hand was his strongest state. The 150-kilogram Emperor Dragon's shock was swift. The 2-meter-long spear was like nothing in Lu Yuan's hands. It could be lengthened or shortened at will. In the blink of an eye, all of Yang Xiong's attacks were reduced to nothingness. The barbaric elephant's charge was powerful, but if it couldn't get close, it would be useless. Furthermore, it would be a waste of soul power. Looking at the sharp tip of the shock of the world, Yang Xiong's hair stood on end. All of his soul skills were useless. Bang! With a swing of the spear, Yang Xiong's large body was flung away, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What exquisite spear skills! Chris exclaimed. He originally thought that Lu Yuan's strength and speed were his trump cards. He didn't expect him to have such exquisite spear skills. What an amazing kid! No wonder His Holiness took a fancy to this kid. In Chris's opinion, the current Lu Yuan was truly a peerless talent. Not only was his martial soul abnormally powerful, but he also had endless skills and a firm will. Even the current Martial Soul Palace's famous Golden Generation couldn't compare to him. As a loyal follower of the Martial Soul Palace, he felt that the Martial Soul Palace was lucky to have such a genius. Even Chris exclaimed, not to mention the spectators below the stage. Each and every one of them was already stunned. Yuan Xin's eyes were filled with deep shock. His roommate was really heaven-defying. He was fighting 1 against 3, but he didn't fall into a disadvantage. Recalling Lu Yuan's heroic words when he first entered the training camp, Yuan Xin couldn't help but admit that Lu Yuan was really a monstrous genius that was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Qin Tian, who was lucky enough to enter the top 10, was also shocked by Lu Yuan's strength. There was no longer any dissatisfaction in his heart. When someone is slightly stronger than you, you may be jealous, but when someone is far above you, you can only look up to them and not dare to complain. He had been completely defeated by Lin Feng, but Lu Yuan was able to fight against 3 of them at the same time. One could imagine how big the gap was between them. The current Lu Yuan and Qin Tian were no longer on the same level. The long spear pierced out, bringing with it a strong wind, and the sound of waves splashing could be heard. Surging waves. Spear after spear was like a tide, endless and unending. Whether it was Yang Xiong's strong attack, the power of thunder and lightning, or Lin Feng's speed and attacks, they were all useless against the spear skills that had no blind spots or flaws. Like a lone boat in the sea, it could be attacked by the waves at any time. 1 against 2, Lin Feng had the upper hand. On the stage, the few of them had been fighting for more than half an hour. Yang Xiong and Lin Feng were restraining Lu Yuan, while Feng Yuyan secretly released her poison mist to disturb him. The 3 of them were on par with Lu Yuan. However, under Lu Yuan's increasingly smooth spear skills, the few of them could only parry and not fight back. Bang! The long spear and the iron hammer collided, causing sparks to fly. Seeing that Lu Yuan had used a long spear, Yang Xiong and Lin Feng also used their own weapons, a big iron hammer and a throwing knife respectively. One attacked in close range, the other shot arrows from the dark, and with Feng Yuan's control, they were able to resist Lu Yuan's attacks. Pu. A throwing knife flew past Lu Yuan's eyes. Lin Feng's throwing knife was hidden in the wind. Not only was the sound it made was very soft, but it was also very fast. An ordinary person would have a hard time blocking it. However, Lu Yuan's spiritual senses were very strong, and he was very fast. In addition to his outstanding spear skills, the throwing knife was not a threat to him. After dodging Lin Feng's throwing knife, Lu Yuan's body shone with a yellow light. His first soul skill, Golden Dragon Fist. Although the Golden Dragon Fist was called a fist, it was actually an amplification soul skill. Right now, the Golden Dragon Fist could increase one's strength by 110%, speed and strength by 55%. Yang Xiong, be careful. Feng Yuan saw through Lu Yuan's actions. Seeing that Yang Xiong was not moving, she quickly reminded him and ran towards him. Oh no, help him. Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he came beside Yang Xiong. His soul power surged wildly. I'll finish you with one move. Vast Sea Universe. Chapter 47. The Vast Ocean Universe was the ultimate move of the Vast Ocean Spear art. It was extremely powerful. With the enhancements from his Golden Dragon Fists, the power of this attack had already exceeded the peak of Lu Yuan's offensive prowess. Lightning Elephant's Protection, Ghost Leopard's Combo, Purple Vine Barrier. In the face of Lu Yuan's menacing spear, the three of them each released their strongest attack. Blue, green, and purple soul power stacked together to form a huge barrier. 3 different colors of light flowed around the barrier, making it seem unbreakable. Lu Yuan's clear air scripture was activated, and his golden soul power poured into the spear. The imperial dragon shocks the world emitted a dazzling golden light, and the golden dragon on the spear seemed to come alive. A huge dragon head condensed at the tip of the spear, and it fiercely attacked the barrier. Bang! The golden dragon head slammed into the barrier, and ripples of energy appeared. The barrier began to tremble violently. Hold on. Yang Xiong clenched his teeth, and his soul power poured out. When Lin Feng saw this, the green soul power in his body flowed out like a tidal wave from far away. Feng Yuan's eyes flashed, and she bit down on her lower lip, and her purple soul power poured out. Break for me. Lu Yuan's eyes revealed a trace of madness, and all the soul power in his body poured out. More than 2,500 kilograms of strength exploded out, and the spear slammed into the barrier. Catcher. Cracks appeared on the barrier, and to Yang Xiong and the others, it was like the sound of a demon's soul. More and more cracks appeared, and the golden light tore through the 3-colored barrier. Finally, with a bang, the entire barrier exploded. The spear carried the remaining power and bombarded the 3 of them, and the huge force caused them to be thrown into the air, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Lu Yuan floated to the ground, and his handsome face was pale. The attack just now had exhausted almost all of his soul power, but the result was still good. Looking at the 3 unconscious people on the stage, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. Defeating 3 Soul Grandmasters, and genius Soul Grandmasters at that, wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Go and take a look. Patting Hal's shoulder, Chris asked him to check on the injuries of the other 3. After all, the 3 of them were rare geniuses. He didn't want them to be wasted here. Hal checked their bodies and nodded to Chris, indicating that their lives were not in danger. Christian breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Lu Yuan, who was still standing in the ring. He couldn't help but admire him. He was indeed worthy of being the disciple of His Majesty the Pope. He was really extraordinary. Cough cough. Chris walked up to the stage and said in a clear voice, "Students, after a fierce battle, our champion has been decided. He is Lu Yuan, let us cheer for him." The students below the stage were stunned for a moment before they began to applaud. The other students who entered the top 10 only had deep admiration towards Lu Yuan for becoming the champion. Fighting 1 against 3, and defeating 3 Soul Grandmasters, this kind of heavenly talent deserved to become the champion. Even they couldn't help but be convinced. The other 6- and 7-year-old students took Lu Yuan as a role model to learn from. They hoped that they could be as outstanding as Lu Yuan in the selection 3 years later. Each of them unconsciously set a goal in their hearts. Lu Yuan's arm was raised high by Chris. This moment was his glory. Looking at the admiring smiling faces below the stage, Lu Yuan felt a sense of satisfaction. This feeling wasn't bad. In the Pope's palace, an image appeared in front of Bibidon. It was the scene of Lu Yuan's duel. Vast universe C. On the Douluo continent, although technology wasn't advanced, there was a type of soul beast called the mirror beast. The skull of the mirror beast could be used to create tools to preserve images. Bibidon held the scepter in her hand, her beautiful eyes shining. A smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Teacher, this is?" asked an 11 or 12-year-old girl beside Bibidon. Looking at the girl beside her, Bibidon's eyes revealed a trace of gentleness. Her red lips opened slightly. "This is the video of the Heaven's Pride training camp's selection competition. You've seen it too. What do you think?" The girl nodded, her voice clear and pleasant. "The quality of this year's training camp students is very high. 3 of them are Soul Grandmasters, and that child seems to be a bit powerful." She pointed at Lu Yuan as she spoke. Bibidon nodded. "This child is called Lu Yuan. He's 6 years old this year and has the Golden Dragon martial soul. He's also this year's champion. He's a very powerful child. He actually defeated 3 Soul Grandmasters by himself." The girl sighed in admiration. Although she could also defeat 3 Soul Grandmasters, she was already rank 29. She was 12 years old this year. This child was only 6 years old, yet he was able to defeat 3 Soul Grandmasters. This kind of talent was a bit terrifying. "Nana, I plan to accept him as my second disciple. What do you think?" Bibidon asked softly. It turned out that this girl was Hulena of the Golden Generation. She was also Bibidon's first disciple. "Teacher, it's your decision. I agree with your opinion." According to the talent Lu Yuan displayed, he was indeed worthy of Bibidon accepting him as a disciple. "Hehe, that's good." Bibidon grasped the scepter in her hand. Her beautiful eyes were still watching the video. Lu Yuan had recently become popular, very popular. Now, he finally understood what the celebrity effect was. It had already been 3 days since the last championship. In these 3 days, he had simply enjoyed the treatment of a noble. When he went to the cafeteria, there would be people to get food. When he returned to the dormitory, there would be people to specially prepare hot water. The current Lu Yuan could be said to be a legend in the training camp. Many of the 6- and 7-year-old students in the training camp all regarded Lu Yuan as their idol. One by one, they stepped forward to help him. His popularity in the training camp could be said to be abnormally high. Since the establishment of the training camp, Lu Yuan was the first to graduate. He was also the youngest to win the championship. At the same time, he had also defeated 3 Soul Grandmasters. It could be said that he had created a record. In a short period of time, Lu Yuan could be said to be in the limelight. Although Lu Yuan himself wasn't someone who liked to be in the limelight, it had to be said that with so many little fans, Lu Yuan still felt a little satisfied in his heart. In these 3 days, Lu Yuan was still the same as before. As usual, he cultivated his soul power and exercised his body. He didn't slack off because he had won the championship. All of this made Chris, who was secretly observing him, nod inwardly. This was the temperament that a strong person should have. Neither arrogant in victory nor discouraged in defeat. Pride and arrogance were one's own greatest enemies. What made Chris gratified was that Lu Yuan was indeed a little arrogant, but he wasn't arrogant. It was normal for a young person with strength and talent to be a little arrogant. After all, they had the support of strength. Lu Yuan was undoubtedly a model of both strength and talent. Chapter 48. 3 days later, Lin Feng, Yang Xiong, and Feng Yuyan had mostly recovered from their injuries. Back when Lu Yuan was in his Golden Dragon Fist state, he had unleashed the Vast Sea Spear ART's Vast Sea Universe, and its power was truly extraordinary. However, Lin Feng and the other two were soul grandmasters after all, and their soul force was deep. After the barrier was broken, the majority of the spear's power had already dissipated. Although the remaining power was enough to seriously injure the three of them, it wasn't fatal. They only broke a few ribs. As soul masters, the three of them had strong constitutions. With the help of specialized healing soul masters and spirit medicines, they were already out of danger. In 3 days, other than their bones, which still needed some time to rest, their other injuries were more or less healed. The three of them were all silent about their loss to Lu Yuan. They were naturally unwilling to accept it. After all, the three of them were 3 years older than Lu Yuan, and they were all soul grandmasters. In the end, they were still defeated in a 1 versus 3 battle. This result was undoubtedly hard for them to accept. On the other hand, the three of them were quite impressed by Lu Yuan's strength. The strength that Lu Yuan had displayed was indeed very astonishing. He was a true heaven's pride and a monstrous genius. Being defeated by such a person was not a disgrace to the three of them. But other than that, it wasn't all bad news. Chris sent news that although the three of them had lost to Lu Yuan, they were still qualified to join the Pontiff's palace. This was a privilege that only the top 3 could receive. According to the rules, one of the 3 of them had to be eliminated before they could join the Pontiff's palace. Chris's news was a comfort to them. The 3 of them didn't need to compete again to join the Pontiff's palace. This was a pretty good result. As for Lu Yuan, the 3 of them looked at each other with relief in their eyes. A monster like Lu Yuan wasn't someone they could compare to. While Lin Feng and the other 2 were recuperating, Lu Yuan was chatting with Yuan Xin. "You're saying you'll go to the Martial Soul Academy after leaving the training camp?" Lu Yuan asked. He'd heard of the Martial Soul Academy before. Chu Yu from the Kingdom of Silvis had brought a child called Douluo. He was an innate Class 9 soul beast. Yes. Yuan Xin nodded. Of the students who walk out of the training camp, only the top 3 can join the Pontiff's palace. The rest can go to the Martial Soul Temple. Most of them can join the Martial Soul Academy and enjoy the benefits of being an elite student. Elite? Lu Yuan was curious. Yes. Yuan Xin nodded. The Martial Soul Academy is the best academy on the continent. Even the Heaven Do Imperial Academy and Sionra Empire Academies can't compare. The Martial Soul Academy has a complete set of facilities. It has a top-notch mimicry cultivation environment suitable for all types of soul masters. This is one of a kind on the continent. Furthermore, the Martial Soul Academy has a strong teaching staff. The current president is the Pontiff, and the 2 vice-presidents are top-notch soul Douluo. There are also titled Douluo elders. Some students can even receive guidance from these elders if they're lucky enough. A look of yearning appeared on Yuan Xin's face. The Martial Soul Academy was also a place that valued talent. All of the students were divided into several classes. The lowest class was naturally the ordinary students, who made up the majority of the students. Next were the advanced students, who enjoyed certain benefits. They could cultivate in the mimicry cultivation environment for a few days every month. There were quite a few of them in the academy. After that were the elite students. Not only were they allowed to cultivate in the simulated cultivation environment, but they were also given a set amount of cultivation resources every month. They were treated very well, and there weren't more than 100 students in the entire year of the Martial Soul Academy who were like this. At the very top were the core students. Just like their name suggested, they were at the core of the academy and had priority in resources. They were provided with soul beast meat and spirit herbs for every meal, and there were teachers in charge of finding the best soul rings for them. They could cultivate in the mimicry cultivation environment at any time, and if their performance was exceptional, they could even be rewarded with soul bones. Their status was even higher than that of ordinary teachers. There were less than 5 people in the Martial Soul Academy who were like this, and the Golden Generation was a classic example. Yuan Xin's face revealed a trace of envy. "I don't dare to dream of becoming a core student, but the top 10 students of the training camp can enjoy the treatment of an elite student. That's quite rare." Lu Yuan understood after hearing Yuan Xin's explanation. If you enter the Martial Soul Academy with your talent, you'll definitely be treated like a core student. Yuan Xin turned to look at Lu Yuan. With Lu Yuan's talent, Yuan Xin was certain that no one in the Martial Soul Academy could compare to him. Even the famous Golden Generation couldn't compare to Lu Yuan in terms of talent. Lu Yuan smiled, but didn't say anything. But with your talent, you'll definitely become the disciple of one of the elders from the Pontiff's palace. Whether or not you enter the Martial Soul Academy and become a core student isn't that important. Yuan Xin still remembered what Chris had said. The champion of this year's competition could choose an elder as his master. No one else could enjoy such treatment. As an elder's disciple, he wouldn't place too much importance on the identity of a core student. After all, every elder was at least a titled Douluo. With such a powerful backer, why would they care about a little bit of so-called resources? Lu Yuan smiled, but didn't say anything. He couldn't say that it might be different from what Chris was thinking, and that he might become the Pontiff's disciple. Saying that would be a little crazy. Lu Yuan wasn't a fool. After Chris's words, his actions in the training camp, and his own speculations, he knew that Bibidon had always been paying attention to him. The championship was his final test. Thinking about it, it was very likely that Bibidon would accept him as his disciple. If he guessed correctly, he would have to go to the Pontiff's palace in a few days. When he arrived, he would meet the beautiful Pontiff, who had met a tragic end in the original story. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but look forward to it. More than 3 months had passed since the system had given him the mission. As long as he arrived at the Pontiff's palace, he would be able to sign in. What kind of reward would the first mission give him? Lu Yuan was very curious. Time flew by, and another 4 days passed. 4 days later, Chris stood alone at the entrance of the training camp. Behind him stood Lu Yuan, Lin Feng, and the other two. They would be heading to the Pontiff's palace under Chris's lead. Lu Yuan couldn't hide his excitement. Lin Feng and the others were also looking forward to it. It was in this atmosphere that the 5 of them embarked on their journey to the Pontiff's palace. Chapter 49. The distance from the training camp to the Pontiff's palace wasn't far. However, it wasn't easy to reach the Pontiff's palace. The Pontiff's palace was in the center of Martial Soul City, while the training camp was outside the city. The journey was more than 50 kilometers. Hence, the 5 of them boarded the carriage early in the morning. With the speed of the carriage, they could reach the Pontiff's palace before noon. 4 hours passed, and it was already past 10 in the morning. The 5 of them finally arrived outside the Pontiff's palace. The Pontiff's palace was heavily guarded. The 5 of them got off the carriage and walked for a long time before arriving. Otherwise, they could have arrived even faster. Without the Pontiff's orders, the 5 of them couldn't barge in. They had to report this to the knights, who would then report it to the Pontiff. They had to obtain the Pontiff's permission before they could enter the Pontiff's palace. Therefore, they could only wait outside the palace, waiting for Bibi Dong's message. The Pontiff's palace was huge and majestic. It surpassed all the buildings Lu Yuan had seen before. Even with Lu Yuan's confidence, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed when he saw such a majestic Pontiff's palace. Lin Feng, Yang Xiong, and the others were even more so. Their eyes were wide open, and they looked like country bumpkins who had never seen the world. Bibidon was discussing matters with the various bishop elders in the Pontiff's palace. Yu Guan, how's the matter with the evil soul masters? Bibidon asked. Bibidon was still furious about the evil soul masters who had massacred Fengming village. The chrysanthemum Douluo bowed slightly and said, "Your Majesty, everything has been taken care of. The soul Douluo, the leader of the evil soul masters, has been executed by me on the spot. The rest of the evil soul masters have also been killed. None of them were spared. Well done." Bibidon's voice was crisp and clear. However, it carried a hint of authority. Announce this matter to the world. Let the world know the consequences of provoking the Martial Soul Palace. Yes, Your Majesty. All the bishop elders replied in unison. All right, that's all. All of you can leave first, Bibidon said. Yes, Your Majesty. All the bishops left. Only Bibidon, the Jew Douluo, and the ghost Douluo were left in the pontiff's palace. Report. Not long after the bishops left, a knight rushed into the hall and knelt down on one knee. Reporting to Your Holiness, the chief instructor of the Outer Palace Genius Training Camp, Chris, is waiting for Your Holiness to summon him with 4 trainees.
Oh, they're here.
Bibidon whispered, "Let them in." Yes. The knight rushed out of the palace and said, "His Highness the Pope has ordered that Chris and the others be summoned for an audience." "What is this, Your Holiness?" the Jew Douluo asked. "Do you still remember the young man who stood up for Fengming village?" Bibidon asked calmly. "I remember." The Jew Douluo replied, "If I recall correctly, his martial soul seems to be the legendary golden dragon, which is a supreme-grade beast soul." "Yes." Bibidon nodded slightly and said, "I sent this Lu Yuan to the Genius Training Camp. 3 months have passed, and he has also become the champion of the Genius Training Camp. He is a capable child." "So that's how it is." The Jew Douluo was enlightened. He recalled what Bibidon had said. Back then, he seemed to have said that as long as Lu Yuan could become the champion, he would be accepted as his disciple. Did that mean that Lu Yuan was going to become the second disciple of the Holy Father? The Jew Douluo couldn't help but become interested. Speaking of which, he had never seen this Lu Yuan before. He wanted to see what was so special about him. After receiving Bibidon's message, Lu Yuan and the others made their way to the Holy Father's palace. After passing through a long flight of stairs, they finally stepped into the Holy Father's palace. Just as Lu Yuan stepped into the Holy Father's palace, the system's voice sounded in his mind, "You have arrived at the Holy Father's palace. Sign-in commencing. Sign-in time, 5 minutes. Phew. Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel excited when he heard the system's voice. "We pay our respects to Your Holiness." Following Chris, the 5 of them knelt down on one knee. "You may rise." Bibidon's voice sounded. "Thank you, Your Holiness." "Chris, are these the top 4 of this year's qualifiers?" Bibidon asked. "Yes, Your Holiness." Chris replied respectfully. "Which one of you is Lu Yuan?" Bibidon asked. "Your Holiness, this child is Lu Yuan." Chris pointed at Lu Yuan and said, "Are you the champion of this year's qualifiers? You are indeed extraordinary." Bibidon had a smile on his face, and his voice was much gentler. "Thank you, Your Holiness, for your praise. I don't dare to accept it." Lu Yuan bowed slightly and said, "Hee." Bibidon laughed softly. His voice was clear and pleasant to the ears. There was a slight smile on his beautiful face as he said, "What an interesting kid. I already know about what happened in Fengming village. Thank you. This is what I should do." Lu Yuan replied. Bibidon looked deeply at Lu Yuan. Her gaze then turned to Lin Feng and the other 2 and said, "Since the 3 of you are in the top 4, you have the qualifications to join the Pontiff's palace. There will be people who will tell you the details when the time comes." Lin Feng and the other 2 were able to become sole grandmasters at the age of 10. Their talent wasn't bad, and they were worth nurturing. However, she was more interested in Lu Yuan. "Thank you, Your Holiness." After hearing Bibidon's words, Lin Feng and the other 3 were very happy. Being able to join the Pontiff's palace was already a very happy thing. They didn't ask for more. Millimeter. Bibidon nodded and instructed, "Chris, you guys can leave. Lu Yuan, stay behind." "Yes, Your Holiness." Chris nodded to Lu Yuan and left the Pontiff's palace with Lin Feng and the other 2. After Chris and the others left, Bibidon's beautiful eyes stared at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan also couldn't help but size up Bibidon. Her wine-red hair draped over her shoulders, and her beautiful face was like jade. Time seemed to have not left any traces on her body. Her beautiful face was lovely and moving, like a poppy plant, full of fatal temptation. It had to be said that this woman was enough to be described as a devastatingly beautiful woman. Since Lu Yuan's rebirth, this was the first time he had seen such a beautiful woman. Looking at Lu Yuan, Bibidon stood up and walked down the throne step by step. When she arrived in front of Lu Yuan, her jade-like hands couldn't help but stroke Lu Yuan's head. Lu Yuan was very handsome. Coupled with his fair skin and cold expression, he was very much like a cold little Shota. Even Bibidon had a good impression of him. Feeling Bibidon's hand on his head, Lu Yuan couldn't help but relax. The refreshing fragrance coming from her body made Lu Yuan somewhat intoxicated. Looking at Lu Yuan in front of her, Bibidon's mouth curved into a smile. Her red lips slightly opened as she said, "Are you willing to be my disciple?" Hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan's body suddenly trembled. Chapter 50. Even though he had already expected it, when he heard Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan's heart still couldn't help but ripple. Looking at the jade-like beautiful figure beside him, Lu Yuan's mind was a little absent-minded. "What, you don't want to?" While Lu Yuan was in a daze, Bibidon's cold voice sounded. It was still a beautiful face, but the smile on the corner of her mouth had disappeared. Lu Yuan was startled and hurriedly knelt on the ground and said, "Lu Yuan greets teacher." Bibidon was stunned for a moment, then a warm smile appeared on her face again and said, "Good child, get up." As she said that, she stretched out her lotus-like arm and helped Lu Yuan up. She still had a gentle smile on her face, but it made Lu Yuan's heart turn cold. He suddenly remembered that the woman in front of him was not a kind person. The extent of her ruthlessness was frightening, but at the same time, she was also a very pitiful woman who lived a life of loneliness. Thinking about it, Lu Yuan gradually adjusted his mentality. In this Pope's palace, under the command of Bibidon, he had to pay attention to his words and actions. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. Gently stroking Lu Yuan's head, Bibidon said softly, "From today onwards, you are my second disciple. Before you, there was a senior sister called Hulena. I think you two will get along very well." "Yes, teacher. From now on, you will live in the Pope's palace. I will take you to your place of residence first. Your senior sister also lives there." After a pause, Bibidon turned around, took Lu Yuan's small hand, and walked out of the palace. Bibidon's hand was white and delicate, smooth as if boneless, like a piece of good warm jade. Holding Bibidon's hand, Lu Yuan felt the warmth in his hand. This feeling was particularly comfortable. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sign in mission completed, reward issued. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a treasure chest. Would the host like to open the treasure chest? Just as Lu Yuan was about to walk out of the Pope's palace, the sign-in mission was finally completed. "No," Lu Yuan secretly ordered. There were too many people here, and there were also titled Douluos like Bibidon and the chrysanthemum Douluo present, so it was naturally not the best time to open the treasure chest. "Yes, the treasure chest has been automatically saved for the host for 3 days. After 3 days, the treasure chest will lose its effect." The system's robotic voice continued. 3 days. That's enough. In 3 days, he would definitely find a suitable opportunity to open it. Bibidon held Lu Yuan's hand as they walked around the pontiff's palace. For a moment, it attracted the attention of many bishops and deacons in the hall. After all, Lu Yuan was the second person to be so close to His Holiness the Pope, and the first was Hulena. It had to be said that this pontiff's palace was indeed worthy of being the residence of the Pope of the Martial Soul Palace. Other than the main hall, the rest of the buildings still had their own unique characteristics. Every flower and pavilion design was original and ingenious. Every railing and stone carving was exquisite. There was no doubt that they were the work of the best masters. After walking around, the biggest impression that Lu Yuan had was that it was rich. It was simply inhumane. Everyone said that the Seven Treasures Glazed sect was the richest sect at that time, with countless wealth and treasures. However, in Lu Yuan's opinion, it still paled in comparison to the Martial Soul Palace. Lu Yuan didn't know how rich the Seven Treasures Glazed sect was, but as the strongest soul master force on the continent, the Martial Soul Palace controlled most of the soul masters on the continent, which was enough to contend with the two great empires. It was undoubtedly very rich. No matter how rich the Seven Treasures Glazed sect was, it was just a sect. Compared to a colossus like the Martial Soul Palace, it was still a few levels lower. Not far from the Pope's palace was a palace. According to Bibidon, this was the place where the bishops stayed. The elders had their own unique residences, which was also a symbol of the elders' status. Lu Yuan's residence was very close to Bibidon's residence. Continuing to walk, not far away, there was a big clear lake. The water was sparkling, and the green waves were faint. Beautiful lotus flowers grew on the surface of the water, and the air emitted a faint fragrance of lotus flowers. It was hard to imagine that there was such a lake in the Pope's palace. In the center of the lake, there were a few small pavilions. They weren't big, but they were very exquisite and filled with the atmosphere of a water village. This lake and the island in the middle of the lake were specially built by me. How is it? Bibidon asked softly. It's very beautiful. Lu Yuan couldn't help but praise. He had to admit that this island in the middle of the lake was indeed very beautiful. This is where I live. Of course, you will live here in the future too, Bibidon said with a smile. Is that so? Lu Yuan was a little surprised. Living in a place like this should be a very enjoyable experience. There was a small boat on the lake. It was also very exquisite, and it was obviously going to the island in the middle of the lake. However, Bibidon didn't need such a small boat. Carrying Lu Yuan, Bibidon tapped his feet lightly and flew over. Behind him, the chrysanthemum Douluo and ghost Douluo followed closely. Flying in the air was definitely a new experience for Lu Yuan. The breeze brushed his face, his clothes fluttered, and the air was filled with the fragrance of lotus flowers. This feeling was really wonderful. After landing gently, Bibidon put Lu Yuan down. Once again, he held Lu Yuan's small hand and walked towards the small pavilion in front of them. The island in the middle of the lake was also filled with flowers and plants. The emerald green grass and white wildflowers were very charming. Of course, the most common blue-silver grass in the entire Douluo continent was not lacking in this place. The door was open, and there were two maidservants standing on either side of the door. They were about 15 or 16 years old, and there were faint soul power undulations coming from their bodies. Lena, Bibidon called out softly. Not long after, an 11 or 12-year-old girl ran out. Teacher. Lena jogged out and arrived in front of the two of them in an instant. Teacher, this must be Junior Lu Yuan, Lena asked. Yes, this is your junior, Lu Yuan. The two of you must get along well. Bibidon nodded and revealed a smile on his face. This is your senior, Lena, Bibidon introduced. Hello, junior. I am Lena. Lena extended her hand and smiled. Hello, senior. I am Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan extended his small hand and shook Lena's hand. Lena's hand was different from Bibidon's. Although they were both soft and boneless, Bibidon's hand was spotlessly white and smooth, while Lena's hand was boiling hot. There was a hint of pink in the fair skin. Carefully sizing up Lena, Tang Wulin saw that she had a head full of short hair, a jade-like complexion, and a pair of long and narrow eyes that were filled with seductiveness. Every frown and smile of hers was enough to tug at one's heartstrings. This woman was fully deserving of the title of natural seductress. Although she was still young, her seduction towards men was not small at all. Even with Lu Yuan's willpower, he could barely resist. This woman was truly a seductress. Chapter 51. It had to be said that among all the women Lu Yuan had seen so far, other than the devastatingly beautiful Bibidon, Lena was the most beautiful. These were not empty words. Although Lu Yuan was young, he had seen quite a few beautiful girls. Notting Academy's Xiao Wu was cute, mischievous, and youthful. However, she was still young, only 6 years old, and her body had not yet started to develop. She was cute, but when compared to her sex appeal, cute was not worth mentioning. In the training camp, Feng Yuyan was also a beauty. Due to the characteristics of her martial soul, purple smoke luo, she wore a purple dress and had a faint charm. She was also a rare beauty. Compared to Lena in front of him, these two people were slightly inferior. Perhaps due to Lena's martial soul, her temptation to men was very strong. In addition, her appearance and figure were top-notch, so her attraction to men was even stronger. Although Lu Yuan's physical age was only 6 years old, his mental age was already more than 20 years old. Regarding the matters between men and women, although he was a noble in both his previous and current life, even if he had never eaten pork, he had still seen pigs run. He knew what he should know by secretly learning it in private. It was also because he knew that this temptation was even stronger. Fortunately, Lu Yuan's spiritual power was far stronger than that of ordinary soul masters, so he did not lose control under Helena's temptation. While Lu Yuan was sizing up Helena was also sizing up this little junior brother of hers. She could see that although Lu Yuan's eyes were stunned, his gaze was clear, as if her temptation did not have much effect on him. This made Helena somewhat surprised. One had to know that she was born with a natural charm. Although she did not deliberately use her charm, the natural temptation that her body revealed was not something that ordinary people could resist. Even Yang and her own brother from the Golden Generation would fall for it if they were not paying attention. Lu Yuan was only 6 years old, a mere soul master, yet he was not affected at all. This made Helena even more interested in this little junior brother that she had just met. Yes. Bibidon took in their expressions and demeanor. She had to admit that Lu Yuan's performance really made her eyes light up. No one knew better than her how tempting Helena's talent and innate charm were to men. However, Lu Yuan didn't seem to be affected at all. It seemed that this little disciple of hers was not only physically strong, but even his spiritual power was also extraordinary. Gently withdrawing his hand, Lu Yuan looked at Helena, who was staring at him with great interest. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. What a seductress. All right, let's go inside. Looking at the two disciples in front of him who seemed to get along well with each other, Bibidon smiled and said softly, "En." Both of them nodded. When he entered the house, the interior was spotless, clean, and tidy. Everything was organized in an orderly manner, as expected of a girl's residence. Compared to the boys' dormitory in the training camp, it was simply incomparable. Bibidon sat at the head of the table, while Helena and Lu Yuan sat together, facing Bibidon. Bibidon looked at Lu Yuan. Out of nowhere, he took out a ring and handed it to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan hurriedly received it. This was a very beautiful ring, a silver ring. In the center of the ring was a blue gem that was sparkling and translucent. The surface of the gem was scattered with silver spots of light. It was deep, distant, and appeared quite mysterious. "Teacher, this is?" Lu Yuan couldn't help but ask. "This is a star ring. It can be considered a high-tier soul tool. Take it as my gift to you as a disciple. Your original ring was too low-tier," Bibidon said. Lu Yuan was stunned. He looked at the ring in his hand and was quite satisfied with its appearance. The star ring lived up to its name. The star ring has a storage space of 50 cubic meters. It can store living or dead things. You can try it yourself, Bibidon said. "Thank you, teacher." Lu Yuan was a little touched. A soul tool that could store living things with 50 cubic meters was quite precious. It was much more advanced than the soul tool belt that the master gave Tang-san. In comparison, the soul tool ring that his old man gave him was really a little low tier. However, it was the old man's kind intentions after all. Naturally, he had to keep it. After putting on the star ring, Lu Yuan also put his original ring into the star ring. "No need to thank me, as long as you like it." Seeing Lu Yuan's loving expression, Bibidon's beautiful face revealed a trace of a smile. "Nana, bring Abuchi to his room and tidy it up properly," Bibidon said. "Yes, teacher." Helena stood up with a warm smile on her face. "Junior brother, follow me." Without waiting for Lu Yuan to refuse, she pulled Lu Yuan's small hand and walked towards another room. At the same time, in the elders' hall. In the dazzling hall, a figure stood quietly. He was dressed in white and his silvery hair was neatly combed behind his ears. He looked down at the middle-aged man in front of him. "You're saying that woman has taken in another disciple?" Although his voice was faint, there was an indescribable dignity in it. "Yes, great consecrator." This man was the great consecrator of the elders' hall. He was also one of the only 3 exceptional Douluo in the Douluo continent, the angel Douluo Sendriu. Oh. Apart from that little girl Hulena, who else can catch her eye? Sendriu's interest was piqued. He understood Bibidon's character very well. After all, he had a deep grudge with Bibidon. After all, his son had raped Bibidon, and Bibidon had killed his only son with his own hands. If it weren't for his granddaughter, he would have killed Bibidon a long time ago, not to mention passing the title of Pope to Bibidon. He had to admit that Bibidon was indeed extraordinary. Under her leadership, the martial Soul Palace was thriving day by day. It was already strong enough to rival the 2 empires. She was also very powerful. Even he wasn't confident that he could take down Bibidon now. Therefore, he was very curious about Bibidon's second disciple. "Tell me about that kid," Sendriu said plainly. The middle-aged man nodded and explained Lu Yuan's information one by one. The Golden Dragon Martial Soul, the youngest champion of the Prodigy training camp. Sendriu's voice carried a trace of surprise. No wonder even Bibidon was tempted to take him in as a disciple. It turned out to be the legendary Golden Dragon Martial Soul. This Martial Soul's strength was not inferior to Little Snow's Seraph. It seems like Bibidon has taken in an amazing disciple. Sendriu's voice carried an inexplicable meaning. Then, Great Consecrator, do you think we should? The middle-aged man gestured with his hand to his neck, revealing a ruthless expression. There's no need for that. Sendriu waved his book and said, no matter what, Bibidon's disciple is also a member of the Martial Soul Palace. Moreover, I'm also very curious about the Golden Dragon Martial Soul. Chapter 52. Lu Yuan was very helpless, especially when his roommate was Hulena. It was his own room, but he didn't expect that there was another person living in the room with him. Senior sister, is it really okay for a man and a woman to live together? Lu Yuan lowered his head and said dejectedly, Hehe, little junior brother, you're so small, what are you thinking about? Don't tell me you're afraid that I'll eat you up. Hulena patted Lu Yuan's head and giggled. It was strange to say that some people were only acquaintances even if they got along with each other every day, but some people could become good friends very quickly even though they didn't know each other for long. Just like Lu Yuan and Hulena at this time. For Lu Yuan, the feeling of getting along with Hulena was very comfortable and very harmonious. This didn't mean that Lu Yuan liked Hulena or anything like that. It was very simple that they were suitable to be friends. At least Lu Yuan had this kind of feeling. For Hulena, she simply felt that this little junior brother in front of her was really too interesting. Especially when Lu Yuan's cold face showed a helpless expression, Hulena couldn't help but want to laugh. Helplessly rolling his eyes, Lu Yuan only felt that there was nothing left to live for. Sleeping with such a seductress every day, he was afraid that he couldn't control the primitive force in his body. Gulp. Lu Yuan's little stomach let out a hungry cry. Hee. Hulena, who had been looking at Lu Yuan, giggled. Lu Yuan's old face was slightly red. Such an embarrassing thing was caught red-handed by Hulena. He had to say that it was a little embarrassing. How could he maintain his cold and aloof persona? This damn stomach, it didn't live up to expectations at all. Lu Yuan secretly complained. Little junior brother, are you hungry? Hulena's pretty face bloomed. She giggled and said, let's go. I'll take you to eat. Eat? Where are we going to eat? Lu Yuan was stunned. There was no place to eat on the island. Hehe, you don't know this, right? There are maids who deliver meals. They should be here by now. Hulena laughed. Oh, that's true. Lu Yuan slapped his forehead. How could he have forgotten that Bibidon was the Pope? There would definitely be someone who would arrange meals for him. There was no need for him to look for food himself. Looks like my mentality still hasn't changed. I have to change this. After exiting the room, they arrived at a pavilion not too far away. The pavilion was by the lakeside. Accompanied by a gentle breeze, the willows, the clear lotus, and the red flowers, it was quite pleasant. At this moment, Bibidon was already waiting in the pavilion. The stone table in the pavilion was filled with delicacies. Nana, Abuchi. Bibidon called out softly as he looked at the two people who came out of the door. Teacher. Hearing Bibidon's voice, Hulena responded. She took Lu Yuan's little hand and walked quickly towards the pavilion. Teacher. Lu Yuan called out softly as he looked at Bibidon, who was as holy as a fairy. You came at the right time. I was just about to send someone to call you. Bibidon smiled as he patted Lu Yuan's head. Come, take a seat. Bibidon said softly. Wow, teacher, are the dishes today so good? Hulena looked at the delicacies in front of her and couldn't help but exclaim. Today is your junior brother's first day of school. Let's treat this meal as a welcoming dinner for him. Bibidon smiled. Come, try it and see how it tastes. Bibidon picked up a piece of golden roasted meat and placed it in Lu Yuan's bowl. There wasn't a trace of meridians on the surface of the meat, and its fragrance assailed the nostrils. Thank you, teacher. Lu Yuan was touched. Bibidon was indeed very good to him. When the three of them sat together, it really felt like a family eating together. This meat. He took a light bite and felt that it was incomparably fresh and tender. It was smooth in his mouth. Waves of fresh meat gushed out from the meat, giving him a kind of extreme enjoyment. What's wrong? Bibidon asked. It's delicious. Lu Yuan exclaimed as he recalled the aftertaste. As expected of the chef of the martial Soul Palace. His culinary skills were indeed extraordinary. This roasted meat was better than all the delicacies he had ever eaten. Eat more if it's delicious. Bibidon smiled gently and placed another piece in Lu Yuan's bowl. Bibidon was already very beautiful. Coupled with her gentle smile, she was like a fairy from the 9 heavens. She didn't reveal any of the majesty of a pope. Instead, she was more like a gentle mother. Teacher, you're biased. You only care about my junior brother. You don't even love me anymore. Seeing Bibidon picking up food for Lu Yuan, Hulena's eyes flashed with a hint of slyness. She pouted and looked as if she had been wronged. Bibidon pointed at Hulena's head and laughed. How old are you? You're still competing with your junior brother. As he spoke, he also picked up a piece of meat and placed it in Hulena's bowl. Thank you, teacher. Hulena didn't mind at all. She stuffed the golden roast meat into her mouth and chewed with a big smile on her face. Teacher, what kind of meat is this? Lu Yuan was a little curious. This roasted meat was very delicious. Even the meat of the 10-year soul beasts he had eaten before couldn't compare. This is the meat of a 1,000-year soul beast, the ironclad rhinoceros. The meat is fresh and tender. It's not bad, right? Bibidon smiled. The meat of a 1,000-year soul beast. Lu Yuan secretly clicked his tongue. As expected of the martial Soul Palace, they were rich and overbearing. One had to know that the ironclad rhinoceros had a thin dragon bloodline. A 1,000-year ironclad rhinoceros was relatively rare. It was definitely the best choice for an assault-type soul elder's third soul ring. However, the martial Soul Palace actually used it to eat meat. It had to be said that they were really rich. Then these are? Lu Yuan pointed at the other dishes on the table and asked. This is a 1,000-year soul beast, the codfish sashimi. It's delicious and smooth when made into sashimi. This is a 1,000-year soul beast, the 8 treasure chicken. Its meat is tender and melts in the mouth. This is a 1,000-year soul beast, the thorny turtle. It's most suitable for making soup. Listening to the introduction, Lu Yuan was dumbstruck. This big table was filled with 1,000-year soul beast. Awesome, it was really awesome. As if seeing through Lu Yuan's thoughts, Bibidon revealed a smile and gave Hulena a look. Hulena put down her bowl and chopsticks and said with a smile, Little junior brother, you misunderstood. A 1,000-year soul beast is still very rare. Even we can't eat it every day. Today's dishes are so good to specially welcome you. Normally, we only eat a few 100-year soul beasts. It's not so extravagant. Oh, so it's like that. Lu Yuan nodded and expressed his understanding. Then, he ate even more happily. After all, according to Hulena's words, it didn't seem like he could eat it often, so he had to eat more. It had to be said that the meat of a 1,000-year soul beast was not ordinary. Not only was it delicious, but it also contained a huge amount of energy that was very beneficial for cultivation. After eating this meal, Lu Yuan felt that his soul power, which had already reached the peak of rank 16, was beginning to stir. Chapter 53. A 1,000-year soul beast was indeed a 1,000-year soul beast. Their meat really couldn't be compared to the meat of ordinary soul beasts. When Lu Yuan was at Notting Academy, he had eaten the meat of a 10-year soul beast. Every time he finished eating, he would feel refreshed and his body would feel warm. However, after eating the meat of a 1,000-year soul beast, he felt a warm current flowing through his body. The soul power in his body had obviously increased by a lot. You really get what you pay for. The meat of a 1,000-year soul beast contained a huge amount of energy. Ordinary low-level soul masters wouldn't be able to withstand it. Fortunately, Lu Yuan wasn't an ordinary soul master. His martial soul was the golden dragon of ultimate strength. His physical strength was tyrannical, so he was able to perfectly absorb the energy in the meat. Otherwise, if it were an ordinary soul master, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to withstand it. At that time, not only would it not be beneficial to the body, it would also be harmful. That wouldn't be good. When Bibidon arranged the banquet, he had already taken Lu Yuan's physical condition into consideration. As for Hulena, she was naturally fine. As a rank 29 soul grandmaster, she was able to withstand the essence and energy in the meat of a 1,000-year soul beast. Lu Yuan ate this meal very happily. After refining the energy in his body, he felt that he wasn't far from breaking through. Originally, he had broken through to rank 16 not long after entering the training camp. After about 3 months of training, he had already reached the peak of rank 16 and was only a step away from rank 17. After eating today's meal, with the help of the energy he had absorbed, he found that he had taken another step forward. It would only take a few days for him to break through to rank 17. And now, he was still 2 months away from turning 7 years old. After lunch, Bibidon arranged the next study plan for Lu Yuan. Abuchi, let's forget about today. From tomorrow onwards, you have to start studying normally, Bibidon said with a smile as he rubbed Lu Yuan's head. Yes, teacher. Lu Yuan nodded and said. Bibidon had a smile on his face as he said, from tomorrow onwards, you'll have to learn some basic soul master knowledge every morning. I'll teach you from time to time. Or when I'm not around, you can ask Elder Ju, Elder Gui, or your senior sister. They'll teach you. And in the afternoon, you will train your actual combat skills. I've seen your actual combat ability. It's not bad, but it's still not enough. So every afternoon, I'll arrange for a teacher to train your actual combat ability. If there's a chance, I'll teach you personally. Do you understand? Bibidon asked. Got it, teacher. Lu Yuan nodded. That's good. Bibidon smiled and said, let's call it a day. Go and play by yourself. Lu Yuan nodded and informed Bibidon before returning to the house. Looking at Lu Yuan's back, Bibidon said to Hulena, Nana, follow me. Hulena stood up and followed behind Bibidon. All the way back to his room, looking at the pink decoration, Lu Yuan was speechless. Why did he have to live with Hulena? If he was really 6 years old, it would be fine. The most important thing was that his mental age was far beyond 6 years old. After thinking about it for a while, Lu Yuan looked around him. Luckily, Hulena didn't follow and there wasn't anyone around. System, open the treasure chest. Since there was no one around, Lu Yuan could take the opportunity to open the treasure chest and see what was inside. He secretly contacted the system. Yes, treasure chest open. In front of Lu Yuan, only Lu Yuan could see the treasure chest slowly appear. The treasure chest slowly opened and a golden light shone out. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the second martial soul, God-slaying spear. A blood-black light appeared from the treasure chest and directly entered between Lu Yuan's eyebrows. Lu Yuan was shocked. Could it be the legendary #1 weapon of the chaotic world, the God-slaying spear? System, Is this the legendary god-slaying spear of the demon ancestor Rahu? Lu Yuan's breathing quickened as he asked hurriedly. Yes. The system's mechanical voice sounded. As expected. Hearing the system's answer, Lu Yuan's pupils shrank. It really was the god-slaying spear. That was a little powerful. One had to know that the god-slaying spear was the #1 weapon of the heavenly Tao. Although it wasn't a carnate cardinal treasure, its attack power surpassed carnate cardinal treasures and was said to be able to kill a saint. One could imagine how powerful it was. Together with the immortal slaying sword formation, one was known as the #1 weapon of the heavenly Tao, while the other was known as the #1 weapon of the heavenly Tao. They were the treasures of the demon ancestor Rahu, and their power was earth-shattering. Although Lu Yuan's god-slaying spear was only a martial soul, the strength of this martial soul definitely surpassed all the martial souls in the Douluo continent. Even the so-called god-rank martial souls were nothing in front of him. God-slaying, this name wasn't just for show. God-slaying spear. Lu Yuan shouted in a low voice. A black spear slowly appeared in his right hand, and the spear emitted a red light. This spear was very illusory, but the moment it appeared, a powerful aura instantly filled the entire Douluo continent. This aura came indistinctly, and no one knew where it came from, but it instantly engulfed the entire Douluo continent. Every place with a god's inheritance could sense it. Angel Temple. A huge angel statue emitted a strong golden light. The huge statue was trembling, and the thumping sounds were endless. Sendriu's expression was serious below the statue. He didn't know what had happened to make the angel statue, which contained the angel's inheritance, tremble. Could it be that a god has appeared? Sendriu muttered to himself. Perhaps only a god's strength could make the angel statue tremble so much. Sea God's Island. Looking at the trembling sea god's trident, a look of disbelief appeared on Pasisi's beautiful face. This was because she could feel that the sea god's trident in front of her was fearful. How could Pasisi, who had dedicated her entire body and soul to the sea god, not be afraid? It's far stronger than the sea god. What kind of strength is this? Pasisi couldn't help but mutter to herself. Capital of Massacre. The king of Massacre opened his mouth wide in fear. His two sharp fangs were especially ferocious. Looking at the trembling blood-red demon sword on the altar, a sense of fear welled up in his heart. The evil that he was so proud of had completely surrendered to the aura that covered the entire Douluo continent. It was as if he had met his ancestor. Other than crawling, there was no other choice. Even the Azura demon sword on the altar that contained the Azura's divine power transmitted a sense of fear. The world is going to change. The king of Massacre's scarlet eyes changed slightly. Pope's palace. Bibidon, who was talking to Hulena, suddenly seemed to sense something. A black sickle mark appeared on her forehead, and the Azura's divine power in her body became a little chaotic. It took a Herculean effort to calm it down. What kind of strength is this? Bibidon touched her trembling heart, and a sinister look flashed across her eyes. Chapter 54. The depths of the Douluo continent were unknown. This was a huge abyss. There wasn't a trace of sunlight in the pitch-black abyss. There was only dead silence. What was shocking was that the water in this abyss was also black. This was the forbidden area of the entire Douluo continent. This was a place that almost no one had been to before. At the bottom of the abyss, there was an empty space. And in this space, there was an unknown black shadow. His body was shrouded in a layer of black fog, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. Two chains, one purple and one red, appeared out of nowhere and tightly bound this figure. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't move at all. But every time this black shadow struggled, the entire abyss would tremble. Azura, destruction, you deserve to die. When I get out, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. The black shadow struggled and let out a mournful howl. Suddenly, the black shadow's movement stiffened, and his body trembled. What is this? Feeling the power that suppressed the entire Douluo continent, the black shadow's struggling movements suddenly slowed down. The black fog gradually dissipated, revealing 12 black wings, Great Star Do Forest, Lake of Life. It was hard to imagine that the depths of the ferocious Great Douluo forest would actually be such a beautiful scene. The Lake of Life was a space of its own. At the bottom of the Lake of Life, a large snow-white flesh silkworm was bound by golden light. Around it, dozens of huge soul beasts were sleeping. Suddenly, the leading black dragon suddenly opened its eyes. It had a pair of cold golden eyes. "Master, what are your orders?" The black dragon prostrated and spat out an ancient dragon language. "The world is about to change, wait for the opportunity." In the depths of the space, there was a silver-white figure. Lakeheart Island, Lu Yuan's room. Looking at the still illusory spear in his hand, Lu Yuan poured his soul power into it without reservation. Following the infusion of his golden soul power, the black spear became more and more solid. "Condense for me." His soul power poured into the spear like it was free. Finally, when Lu Yuan's soul power was almost exhausted, the entire spear finally condensed. The spear was very simple. There was nothing fancy, and there weren't any magic patterns. The entire spear was dark black, and there was a faint red light in between the sparkles. This was the god-slaying spear. Once the god-slaying spear was unleashed, the aura that had enveloped the entire Douluo continent began to rapidly dissipate. It didn't take long for it to completely vanish. Within the pontiff's palace, Bibidon's expression relaxed slightly. The chaotic soul force within his body instantly returned to normal, and the black scythe on his forehead disappeared without a trace. Looking at Hulena beside him, Bibidon's face turned serious. "Nana, you can't tell anyone about the mark on teacher's head. Do you understand?" "Yes, your disciple understands." Looking at Bibidon's serious expression, Hulena nodded sensibly. The Angel Palace, Sea God's Island, and the capital of Slaughter had all calmed down. "Ah!" Lu Yuan let out a blood-curdling scream. His handsome little face was filled with malevolence, and his eyes turned scarlet. The god-slaying spear was extremely powerful. It could harm others as well as oneself. The killing power that it contained was as deep as the ocean. Even though no one had activated it, it was still extremely powerful. With Lu Yuan's spiritual power, it was clear that he couldn't withstand this killing power. Hence, he was about to lose control. Simply put, the killing power of the god-slaying spear had taken control of Lu Yuan's mind. Although the god-slaying spear was Lu Yuan's martial soul, and wouldn't harm Lu Yuan, if Lu Yuan couldn't control it, his mind would be invaded by the killing power within, and he would become a wild beast that only knew how to kill. In the past, when one obtained one, the heavens obtained one to be clear, the earth obtained one to be peaceful, the gods obtained one to be spiritual, the valleys obtained one to be filled, all living things obtained one to be born, the kings obtained one to be righteous. As such, the heavens couldn't be clear. Just as Lu Yuan was about to completely sink into killing, a clear voice rang out in his mind. It awakened Lu Yuan's last bit of clarity. While his clarity was still there, Lu Yuan hurriedly dispersed his soul power. The god-slaying spear also disappeared. Rubbing his head, Lu Yuan only felt cold sweat on his forehead. What an evil god-slaying spear! He had almost been consigned to eternal damnation. Panting heavily, Lu Yuan secretly rejoiced in his heart. However, he was also a little frightened. Would you believe that he had almost been killed by his own martial soul? System, what's going on? Lu Yuan calmed his mind and began to connect with the system. Why did something like this happen? Replying to the host. This is because the killing power of the god-slaying spear is too strong, and the host's spiritual power is too low. That's why you almost lost your mind. Fortunately, the host reacted in time, and you still have the clear chi scripture to protect your body, so you're fine for now. The system's mechanical voice rang out. You mean to say that this god-slaying spear will harm me in the future? Lu Yuan frowned slightly. He had thought that he had awakened a heaven-defying martial soul. In the end, before he could use it, he had already gotten himself into trouble. Yes, but the host has the clear chi scripture to protect your body. It can protect your mind. As long as you don't use the god-slaying spear in the future, there won't be any major problems. Then the god-slaying spear can only be set aside and not used. Lu Yuan was a little unwilling. If he couldn't use such a powerful martial soul, how great of a loss would that be? No, as long as the host's spiritual power reaches a certain level, you can use the god-slaying spear without suffering any harm, the system said. What level do I need to reach before I can use the god-slaying spear freely? Lu Yuan asked. At the very least, the host's spiritual power has to be comparable to a soul sage before you can use it for the first time. If you want to use the god-slaying spear freely, it's best that your spiritual power is above that of a soul Douluo. What? Lu Yuan's eyes widened. Didn't that mean he had to wait for a very long time? This is all for the host's sake. Please think about it carefully, the system said. Lu Yuan frowned. A martial soul that couldn't be used was like a chicken rib. He clenched his fists but was unwilling to relax them. This was the only way. Then let's leave it at that. The golden dragon martial soul is already strong enough. When I become strong enough, it's not impossible to cultivate the god-slaying spear. Lu Yuan comforted himself. System, just now you said that even if I don't use the god-slaying spear, it will still have some effects on me, right? Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something and asked. Yes, the god-slaying spear's power is too great. Even if it's sealed and not used, the martial soul will still have a subtle effect on the host. It might make the host's temperament even colder, making it harder for him to control his temper. Is there any way to solve this? Lu Yuan asked. The host can comprehend the clear qi scripture more. This martial art has a significant effect on calming the mind and removing inner demons. It can be of great help to the host. Clear qi scripture? Lu Yuan thought of the scripture that had appeared in his mind when he had fallen into the state of slaughter. It was those scriptures that had awakened him from that state of slaughter. What is the origin of this clear qi scripture? Lu Yuan was a little curious. The saint's art, honoring the clear and suppressing the impure. The system's voice quietly rang out. Chapter 55. Saint's Technique. Hearing the system's words, Lu Yuan's eyes widened. It's that awesome. He seemed to be in disbelief. He had been cultivating the clear qi scripture since he was 3 years old. It was indeed a very powerful technique, probably much more powerful than Tang San's mysterious heaven technique, but it couldn't be called a saint's technique. It was just an ordinary martial arts technique. He didn't see any technique that could allow him to fly into the sky or burrow into the ground. He also didn't see any technique that could allow him to become strong by pointing at the ground. Up until now, he didn't have the ability to fly on a sword. How could such a technique be a saint's technique? System, I don't think this clear qi scripture is that powerful. Lu Yuan asked. The host's clear qi scripture is a castrated version. Castrated version? Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows. Yes, the clear qi scripture was originally the immortal scripture of Tai Ching, a technique that leads directly to the saint realm. The host's clear qi scripture is a simplified version of the immortal scripture of Tai Ching. Simplified? Even if it was simplified, it wouldn't be simplified to such an extent, right? Lu Yuan rubbed his forehead, feeling a little helpless. To be able to simplify a technique that leads directly to the saint realm into a martial arts technique, he had to admit that the castrated version was indeed powerful. This is a simplified version based on the specific conditions of the host's world. After all, the Douluo world's level is relatively low, and techniques that are too powerful are not allowed by the rules. That's why it was simplified to such an extent. But even so, the clear qi scripture can still be called the #1 technique in the Douluo continent. Although the clear qi scripture doesn't have any immortal cultivation techniques, it has great benefits for the growth of spiritual power. Furthermore, it has a very strong purifying power and has a very strong innate resistance to evil power. Furthermore, after cultivating the clear qi scripture, the soul power will be endless, allowing the host to have an extremely strong battle endurance. The clear qi scripture is a great contributor to the host being able to break free from the influence of the god-slaying spear's killing aura. The system's voice sounded. Is that so? Lu Yuan rubbed his chin. It seemed that he still had to work harder on the clear qi scripture in the future. Furthermore, The host's clear chi scripture is incomplete. Incomplete? Lu Yuan's puzzled voice sounded. Yes, the host's clear chi scripture is only the first half. When the host reaches the 9th level of the clear chi scripture, there will be a chance to obtain the second half. Only when the two parts are combined will it be the true complete peerless skill, the clear chi scripture. Is the second half amazing? Lu Yuan's interest was piqued. Very powerful. The second half involves a different level of power. What power? God? Lu Yuan asked. No comment. The system's voice sounded, Host, please be realistic and don't bite off more than you can chew. When you become a titled Douluo, you will know everything. TSK. Lu Yuan pursed his lips and gave him the middle finger. However, now that he knew the effects of the clear chi scripture, Lu Yuan was determined to spend more effort on it. In the past, he spent his time on martial arts like the mountain sea fist and the vast ocean spear art. He didn't study the clear chi scripture very hard, so he didn't know that it was very beneficial to spiritual power. Now that he thought about it, he felt a little regretful. Cultivation methods for cultivating mental strength were relatively rare. The clear chi scripture could not only cultivate chi, but it could also cultivate mental strength. Just this point alone made it far superior to the mysterious heaven method. With a plan in mind, Lu Yuan's mood brightened. Although he couldn't use a powerful martial soul like the god-slaying spear now, he was still very happy. He thought of Tang-san again. Twin martial souls? Haha, who didn't? After resting for a while, Lu Yuan felt that the soul power in his body had recovered sufficiently, so he stood up. The god-slaying spear was really too terrifying. Just releasing it and condensing it into a physical form almost exhausted his soul power. There was still a long way to go before he could freely use it. Looking at the messy room and the dusty pink carpet, Lu Yuan suddenly felt his scalp go numb. Ah! A scream came from the room on the island in the middle of the lake. Stupid junior brother, what did you do? Helena looked at the messy bed and dusty carpet, and a trace of anger flashed across her charming eyes. This was her favorite carpet. Helena had a half-smile on her face. She rolled up her sleeves and walked towards Lu Yuan. Don't you want to explain to me, junior brother? Haha, senior sister, I can explain. Lu Yuan smiled. This smile was very pure. Haha. Helena's figure pounced towards Lu Yuan. Ah. Don't hit my face. It was still Lu Yuan and Helena's room. Everything was neatly tidied up again. Lu Yuan sat cross-legged at the head of the bed with his eyes closed. After the god-slaying spear, he felt like he was about to break through. Seeing Lu Yuan meditating to break through, Helena leaned on the table in boredom. Her long, narrow eyes looked curiously at Lu Yuan. She didn't expect this little guy to break through so quickly. He was really talented. He was about to reach rank 17 before he was 7 years old. Such talent made Helena feel a sense of urgency. If she didn't work hard to cultivate, this junior brother would catch up in a few years. Her senior sister's soul power was not as high as her junior brother's. It wasn't something to be proud of. As she thought about it, Helena became more determined to cultivate. This brat is quite handsome. She wasn't exaggerating, but Lu Yuan's looks were indeed top-notch. Moreover, he was only 6 years old. It was hard to imagine how handsome he would be when he grew up. Wouldn't he be popular with thousands of girls? Helena's imagination was running wild. On the other hand, Lu Yuan had reached a critical moment. The clear chi scripture was running wildly. Golden soul power flowed rapidly in his meridians. Break. The golden soul power crashed violently toward the rank 17 membrane. Like a flood crashing against a decaying dam, the rank 17 barrier was instantly broken in front of Lu Yuan's tyrannical soul power. At this moment, Lu Yuan advanced again. Gently exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lu Yuan slowly opened his eyes. Feeling the increase in soul power in his body, a smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. He had improved again. Junior brother, you broke through? Helena asked as she looked at the energetic Lu Yuan. Millimeter. Lu Yuan nodded and said, I'm rank 17 now. Congratulations, junior brother. Helena blinked her beautiful eyes. Her expression was sincere. Thank you, senior sister. I still have to continue working hard. Lu Yuan patted his chest, indicating that he still had to continue working hard. Millimeter, not bad. Helena was very satisfied with Lu Yuan's attitude. His temperament was passable. He didn't become blindly confident and arrogant just because of a little achievement. As expected of her junior brother. Lu Yuan smiled and didn't comment. Since you've broken through, then come with me. We can go for dinner. Helena pulled Lu Yuan's small hand and walked out. Is that so? Lu Yuan was stunned for a moment. It was already time for dinner. Walking out of the house, the sky was gradually darkening. Chapter 56. Time flowed like water, and in the blink of an eye, Lu Yuan was already 7 years old. It had also been 2 months since he joined the martial Soul Palace. In these 2 months, Lu Yuan's performance had completely convinced Bibidon and Gui Ju. Even they had to admit that Lu Yuan was indeed a top-notch genius. This was not only shown by Lu Yuan's top-grade Golden Dragon martial soul, but also by Lu Yuan's terrifying learning ability and combat talent. No matter what kind of knowledge was taught, Lu Yuan could always learn it in one go. He could truly understand it once he listened and learned it once. Furthermore, he could quickly gain a deeper understanding of it. His talent for learning was rarely seen in the world. In terms of combat, Lu Yuan had also improved greatly. Originally, although Lu Yuan's strength could be considered outstanding among those of the same rank, that was because his martial arts were exquisite and his martial soul was powerful. His actual combat experience was not very rich. More often than not, he used his aura to suppress others and directly used his strength to crush them. But now, he was fighting with all kinds of soul masters almost every day. The martial Soul Palace did not have many things, but it had many soul masters. Almost all kinds of soul masters could be found in the martial Soul Palace. In these 2 months, Lu Yuan had constantly improved in his battles with soul masters, and had already developed his own unique combat experience. This combat experience was not only reflected in his techniques, but also in his grasp of the battle. He accurately used every bit of his strength without wasting anything. When facing different soul masters, he had to adopt different combat methods. Lu Yuan was already doing quite well in this aspect. Perhaps there was still a gap, but to be able to perform like this at his age was already very rare. Plum Garden. This was the martial Soul Palace's meticulously built plum garden. The cold winter had arrived, and the plum trees scattered their pure white petals, emitting an enchanting fragrance. Ever since he found out about this plum garden, Lu Yuan liked to come here to cultivate his martial arts. Not only was this place deserted, the scenery was enchanting, and the space was huge. It was really a good place to cultivate. Swish. Spear shadows swirled in the air. The 300 Jin peerless spear in Lu Yuan's hands was like a handsome dragon coming out of the sea, exuding a monstrous might. This set of vast ocean spear art was indeed exceptionally exquisite. Although Lu Yuan was proficient in it, in reality, he still didn't have a thorough understanding of the essence of the spear art. This wasn't because Lu Yuan's talent wasn't enough, but because there was still a gap between their realms. This spear technique pointed to a higher realm of spear Dao. Just like sword techniques, sword force, sword intent, sword soul, and other realms in sword techniques, spear techniques also had similar realms. These were the so-called spear technique. But in the world, force, how many spear people intent, had the chance to and obtain a divine weapon?
Although Lu Yuan was a genius,
or sword soul
he was still
extremely
young
powerful and had
He
a
had
huge
just
boost
broken
in
through the
battle.
realm of spear
It could be
technique
said
and
that
was
if
only
a rank
one step
ninety-eight
away
peak
from spear
Douluo
force
comprehended a
the
spear
so-called
soul or
momentum
sword soul,
referred to
then he
power
could even
and
fight a
influence.
rank 99
It
peerless
referred to the
Douluo
natural
and not be
aura
at a
emitted
disadvantage.
by people who
One
practiced
had
the
to know
spear
that
or the
although the
sword
gap
when they
between
reached
rank
a certain
98
level.
and rank
This
99
kind of
was not as
momentum
big
could
as the
not
gap
only
between
increase
heaven
the
and earth,
destructive
it
power
was
of
still
one's
not a
spear
small
art,
obstacle,
but also
generally
suppress the
speaking,
opponent and
a rank
reduce the
99
opponent's
peak
strength.
Douluo could easily
However,
defeat a
this
rank
realm was
98
still
peak
like a wall
Douluo
in
with a
front
few
of Lu
punches and
Yuan.
kicks.
If he
The
wanted
gap
to
in
successfully
strength during
cross
this
it and
period
comprehend
could be
spear
imagined.
force,
Lu
However,
Yuan still had a long way to go.
The spirit realm could
when
bridge
spear
this
force
gap.
was condensed
This
to a
was
certain
its
realm,
power.
it would
It
undergo
was a
a
pity
qualitative
that there were very
change.
few people
At
in the
that
Douluo
time,
continent
one could
who had
comprehend
comprehended
spear
intent.
So how could
The
they talk
so-called
about the
intent
spirit realm?
referred to concept.
This was a realm that
This was
almost
an
no one had
indescribable
touched.
power.
For
It
Lu
was
Yuan,
profound
who
and
had been
powerful.
exposed to martial
If
arts
one
since he was
comprehended
young,
spear intent,
comprehending a
it would
spear
be
soul
normal
was
for
one
one
of
to
his
cross
goals,
realms
and
at
his
the middle
final
and
goal
low
was
levels.
naturally to become
Even
a god.
if one reached the
Even
realm of a
Tang San
title
and the
Douluo,
others in the original
intent
work
still had a
could
huge
become
effect.
a god.
The
As a
seven
transmigrator,
glazed sects
he was
saw
familiar with the
Douluo
plot
was someone
and had
who
the
had
help
already
of the system.
comprehended concept.
If he still could not
Of
become a
course,
god,
he was a
then he would be
swordsman,
too useless.
so what he comprehended
Hence,
was sword intent.
from the beginning,
If an
his
elder
goal
from
was
the
very
elder
ambitious.
hall, such as the
This was
thousand Jun
also the
Douluo
reason
or the
why he
demon
worked
subduing
hard to
Douluo
cultivate
was
every
pulled
day.
out. They wouldn't
Since
be
he
a
was
match for the
reborn
sword
in the
Douluo continent.
This was the
Then he
power
would not
of
be
sword
weaker than
Douluo's
anyone
sword
in this
intent.
life.
Although
Zhong
sword
Yang would
intent
not
was
be weaker
powerful,
than anyone in
spear
this
intent
life.
wasn't to be
Cough,
outdone.
cough. His
For
movements
example,
were comical.
Lu Yuan was
Lu
currently
Yuan
ranked
stepped forward
17.
and extended
However,
the spear in his
if
hand,
Lu Yuan
displaying
comprehended
his pure
spear
intent,
technique,
not
the
to
cold
mention a
wind
soul
blew,
grandmaster,
bringing with
he
it
could
a
even
bone-chilling
casually beat up a
coldness.
soul elder.
The scattered
This was
plum
the
blossoms
power of
danced
intent.
in the sky.
It was a
Under
pity
the
that
plum
everyone on the
blossoms,
Douluo
Lu Yuan's
continent
figure
focused on
rose
their
and
martial
fell one
soul
after
and
another,
relied too
not
much on
by
their own
spear
martial
skills.
soul.
Suddenly,
Apart from a
a
few
voice
people,
was heard.
almost no
It was
one could
crisp and
comprehend
pleasant,
intent, like a lark
This
in spring.
included Tang San,
And there was a faint
Bibidon,
arrogance in
and
it,
Chihiro
like
Snow,
a phoenix
who
from
had
the
become
nine
gods
heavens.
in the original
Lu
work.
Yuan kept
As
his
for the
spear
final
and
realm of
slowly
spear
exhaled
soul,
a mouthful
it
of
belonged
turbid
to an
air.
even higher
He
realm.
turned around slightly
In the current
and glanced
Douluo
around.
world,
No one had
suddenly,
comprehended
his gaze
the spirit
focused.
realm. At
This
the
was a
spirit
beautiful
realm,
figure.
the spear in
Your
one's
tuning
hand
in to
was
the
no
celestial
longer an
war
inanimate
YouTube
object.
channel.
Don't
It was
forget
a
to
living
subscribe
object
and join
that
us
could
on this
communicate
journey
with
to
its
catch
owner.
the most
At
captivating
this level,
stories. The quality of the weapon itself had little effect on them. Even if it was a rotten tree branch, it would be able to unleash a power that far exceeded that of a divine weapon. Because at this level, the powerful one was the person